See you around. And with that, I started walking and didn't look back. Something like that. That is the end. The end of our boy, Rudios
Oh my god! Yeah, we're almost not actually done, but almost done with Mushoku Tensei. Kind of done. Yes. Anyway. Hi everybody.
We're done.
Back
We're done. Well, actually, no, we're not done with. I was going to say we're done with Rudius' story, but there's stuff at least relevant to when he's still alive to come.
Yes.
So
Precisely.
that's not true, but that will come one day. One day there will be more stuff.
But first, comments. I probably got a few comments about
the confusion of the
golden armor and Alderabon, where from what I gathered, because I was very confused by the first one that just said like, oh, Alderabon probably didn't exist and it was always Lapis, and I was confused about that. Also I hadn't finished the reading, but then it seems that it's more that Alderabon existed, but he probably never used the golden armor, and thus like people just thought it was him, or Lapis took his name, or otherwise assumed it was him, maybe, or anyway, like we talked about last time, it's kind of deliberately kept vague anyway, so not completely clear rather. But yeah, still glad that people are chiming in.
I love Dark Sonic's comment on the names and the names and Mushoku Tensei, because I actually haven't thought extensively about it. But yes, there are clear different naming. We've talked about at the very least the Austria kingdoms, like Red Bat,
theming,
Gray Rat, Purple Horse, all that stuff. But we haven't really talked much about like how the demon races like Superdia, Migurdia, like that stuff, which is just it's basically just it's just basically singing to their race, right? And like the with the immortal demons, there's like repetition in the in the syllables and all that stuff. So it's cool. I hadn't thought about it that much, but yes, it's cool stuff. Rufujin did there, the wording.
There's also Rudius voluntary practicing celibacy is possibly a bigger plot twist than any turning point, and that's pretty funny.
True. What was I? Ronin, I don't know which one. Okay, the Necros Lacros. True, that is a fucking base name. I agree with you. I'm not going to read the old Dragon Tale spoilers because we're going to be reading that. So,
is that part of the one of the novels that we're going to be reading, or is it a novel of its own? Okay, gotcha. Okay.
That's what I was wanting to do, both the redundant Reincarnation volumes out and then plus Old Dragon. So, because as far as I know, those are the only.
Oh, that's right. You did mention that. I was only thinking about Recollections and redundant Reincarnation, but yeah, no, whatever's. That's fine. I don't mind. Because if it gets translated, because it's fan translated, you said.
I don't actually,
because the way Ronan talks about it implies that it's not officially translated. Yeah, he's waiting for a light novel release, so it's not officially released in English. So okay.
We don't have to read that then, since it's not officially translated.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind either way.
I mean, I'm fine reading an unofficial, but it'd be more up to you on that one. So
let's stick to official for now. Like I'm not like chomping at the bit to read every little piece that I can, because we're gonna get more regardless eventually, right? Anyway, I think the last comments. I don't know if you wanted to respond to but because he mentions the House Latria stuff, and I did check the novel again, and the person who says that is the Cardinal, who we find out was directly working with the Pope in regards to like everything that was going on, and like it just says message. He read that as letter. It doesn't have to be literally a letter. It could be just some, because I think it's a lie. It's like that's how I read it. Is that like the Pope and the Cardinal are working together at this point in the story. They're throwing the Latria family under the bus. So they came up with a reasonable sounding lie as to why, how they got the tip off of Rudy wanting to kidnap the blessed child, when the reality was that he literally told that to the Pope. Just to clarify, that's how I read it regarding that situation. And because he read it differently and saw the Latria family as being more in the wrong. But that I read that as that's literally the Pope and the Cardinal manipulating the situation. So, yeah.
Yeah. That was my reading as well. But as far as the bitch slap thing, I don't. At this point, I've lost the plot.
That was like 5 volumes ago. I don't at this. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I was like, I'm not wrong in this, right? And I looked it up, and I'm still pretty sure I'm not wrong on that. So. And yeah, as for the bitch slap, I mean, it just like because if he's thinking that the Latria family was more wrong, we're like, well, yeah, that's the thing because it's like what was happening in this scene. Rudy and all the priests there were watching this noble family get thrown in the bus and not doing anything about it, and Cliff's like, no, that's kind of fucked up, right? Like, even Rudy was like, this is a weird situation, but I'm mad at Claire, so I'm not going to do anything, right? And that's like, so when Cliff, like you said, bitch slapped them all verbally by, yeah, I don't know. I think it's fine. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
he just seems to disagree with us, I guess. So, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But going off the other comment, maybe he just had a different take on the story and assumed that we would have this. I don't know. I don't get it. Yeah, you're right. This was 5 volumes anyway. But as I said, just mentioned, this was 5 volumes ago. Let's move on to these volumes.
Hell yeah.
Because
I'm not gonna lie, so much went down. I read so much, even right before we started here. I read the final stuff that I was supposed to. We had there's a little complication behind the scenes.
It's been 2 weeks. I understand. I mean, I'm glad you did read it, but still 3 volumes in 2 weeks.
Chapter 1 of Volume 24. What did that entail? What
so that was
happened in chapter?
Basically just Chandel and Doga organizing to go to the
yes
continent.
That's the meeting. Yeah, where they teleport in on Ariel's command.
Yes.
And then they meet him. Okay, we got to get this out of the way though, Crafts. This time I did read version 2 of all 3 of these last novels. And
that means you might be okay because I only have revision 2 for volume 26. So you read more updated versions for 24 and 25.
Chandel was very quickly in volume 24 changed to Sandor, and after doing some digging through, Sandor is actually the appropriate translation. It is what was intended when you Romanize it. It's supposed to be
I
Sandor.
forgot. I didn't even notice that because I have it written here as Chandel, and then later I had it written as Sandor. And I think once I found out who he was really called, I think I kind of forgot his original name because by then he was already being. I forgot he was being called Chandel. But no, well, I was gonna say because I forgot. I realized it later. I was going to look it up because as you're saying, what's intended. Because what I'm assuming is that I imagine the katakana reading for Sandor and Alexander are probably like very like he's just saying who he is. That's what the name is, right? But I didn't look up the katakana to see how close they are because Chandel kind of loses. Kind of like actually there was a recent thing in One Piece where the official was calling him something different. And the reason, like, with the Gaban, or Gaban, as he was originally called in the official viz, even though that's, like, not what the original katakana for his name read, just that kind of thing. I honestly completely forgot about the original Chandel. I mean, obviously I didn't forget the character, like, that guy who was being real coy with Rudy in the last reading
he's
some
reason. He's got a true name anyway, so Sandor and our boy Doga pop in.
Yes.
And they're like, hello.
And I feel like it's similar with the Leo, the spirit, the special beast, of just like how, because we're stuck to Rudy's perspective, like we're kind of led into underestimating these guys as well. Like, oh yeah, Doga, he's just some big dumb guy. So North Emperor Doga, big deal. Like, and then of course, fucking, Sandor, North God, Kalman the second, and it's like, oh, Oh.
Right now they're just Sandor and Doga. Right now they're just Sandor and Doga. They're like, hey, and then it is pretty funny though, given Rudius's early assessment of them, going like, I'm analyzing their fighting style. Yeah, they're maybe advanced level at best. Yeah, they'll slow me down in a real fight, but and it's just like obviously I know the future stuff that's going to happen. Like I remember a lot of this stuff, so I was just thinking like, okay, so what's happening right now is they're just like they're not fighting their full power. Yeah. They're just kind of lackadaisically, like they're doing as much as they possibly can with as little effort as they can. So.
Which of course, like they're under disguise in the first place, right? So
exactly.
Exactly.
Which makes sense given that the first time that Doga is in an environment that's all the way shrouded, he's like, all right, time to go all out, just one shot all these earth dragons, and it's like, holy shit. Anyway, but this is later on. Right now we're meeting. Just two normal knights, two normal knights. Not even in gold armor, as Rudius says. It's not even golden knights.
Then they get into the continent, and Rudy has another fateful meeting with soy sauce, or ogre water, as it's later called, in the appendix, which I thought was pretty. I don't. Maybe they did call it that in 24, but I read the appendix in volume 26 more recently.
I love the setup of this scene where it's like they're going in a bar and then Rudius is like, something is amiss, and Sandor's like, should we leave? He's like, no, I got to figure out what's going on. Geese might be here. It's like this insane buildup, and it's just like, and then Doga is like collapsing. He's like, what is happening? And then there's like poison. No, but he wouldn't directly attack us. It's like, oh wait, it's soy sauce. Oh shit, wait, my third dream on the list of dreams in this new world has been accomplished. Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh man. Especially the comment that I thought was interesting was just how the ogre lady's like, it's poisonous to humans, and I remember in high school learning that like because of the salt content, if you take like a shot glass of soy sauce, you can go into shock and actually die. So I was like, oh yeah, no, it is poisonous. That's a I wanted to share that because even if you knew, some people in the audience might not. I thought that was interesting, and just as a way to build up to it being soy sauce, because like we don't normally think of it as poisonous. Like if anything, it's like that doesn't make sense. How is soy sauce poisonous to humans? And it's like, well, if you drink it like ogre water, you will die. You could very well die. But anyway, as I feel like the first half of the volume is neat, but it's mostly them getting to the especially seeing the perspective of the villagers and everyone on the forest folk as we come to know, and then eventually they get there and it's like, oh yeah, it's the Superb village, and they're fighting invisible wolves, and also they're sick with the plague. And, well, especially the fucking, the first revelation I had here was the fucking man god. And Rudy's acts, like, so many of Rudy's actions he took as a result of the man god had these repercussions later. Like, for example, as we saw with the Sharon. But the one that we see here is, like, I was immediately like, oh, well, how did Rudy, like, because even Orsted was like, no, Rudiger doesn't, he normally doesn't, he never finds the Superb, and by the time, I get there, they're all wiped out. And, so it's like, well, how did Rudiger get there? Well, Bodigatti told him. How did Bodigatti tell him? Because he went to both of these people went to this specific place because Rudy was there. And it's like fucking, the man god could have easily seen all that and, led, as we find out, the Superb are actually, they're part of the reason that he dies, because they're, Orsted needs a Superb to defeat Laplace because, to do exactly what happened when Rudiger fought Laplace back in then, of hitting the weak point with their Superb sensory ability. So Orsted needs, Rudiger's daughter, as he says. But so the man god manipulates things to kill all the Superd. But the reason they're still alive is also because of the man god, because you have Abyssal King Vita, just out of fucking nowhere. Like,
yeah, I don't know. Okay,
what?
so speaking of that, by the way, that Orsted line. Okay, Krabs, were you not with me when you read his daughter? Were you not like, wait a second, who's the mother? Were you not like, wait.
Yeah,
who's
well,
the mother?
yeah.
I want to know who the mother
I
is.
may have peeked ahead at the volume artwork for the two
Okay, you got
volumes we're
spoiled.
gonna
Okay,
read
you got
next
spoiled
time,
too.
so,
Fuck you! I was hoping you wouldn't get spoiled because I got spoiled on that artwork too. Unfortunately, so
it's too. I wanted more, and I'm like, oh, what if I just peek ahead? It can't hurt me, and then it hurt me. Well, I would have found out before I read it anyway, but there's still a difference between like finding out before I read it and finding out before I discussed the previous reading. So that's on me. I was tempted by the devil, and not the only one who was tempted by a demonic. Anyway,
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about it is, I've been spoiled since that image dropped. Like I've been spoiled for a long time.
I remember. I remember a comment relevant to that, but I'll bring it up next time because I don't want to directly mention it on the off chance someone is reading alongside of us and doesn't want to know until next time. But you know. But anyway. So, and yeah, then we find out that fucking, how did Vita get here? Oh, it was fucking geese. And that's just, like, really should have set off more warning bells, because, like, I didn't know or think about how, we see the volume end later with, the fuckers, the blowjob brothers, Kalfalian and Alec. But you know, I really should have been thinking here as like, oh no, Geese is already here. Like all of Rudy's plans are going to fucking implode. He was too slow to get here. Like it's all gonna go south. And sure enough, Ruijerd infects Rudy with Vita, and well, which is actually things going well eventually, but it could have been very bad. Anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just the thing about I think it's so devious too that the man god like is just using people that all of our party has like relationships with, like even down to Body Gotti. Atofe is with us now, and then like with Alec. You know, we got fucking North God Kalman II here. You know, is the father of Alec. You know, Sword God Galfalian. We got Eris over here. It was a direct, like it's, and then of course, how does fucking Vita even get to Rudius? Through fucking Ruijerd, the guy that Rudius trusts the most, right? It's pretty it's pretty devious. So I love that aspect of the man gods of like the repertoire of the man god builds. Well, and by extension, Geese, because Geese is he's the Rudius of that side. And he's actually acting it out as the man god's will. So, no, it's great. But this stuff sequences us to the best portion of this novel.
Oh my God.
Which is the dream sequence. And it's so good.
Yeah.
So the thing I was thinking, even reading like the first dream, and I think it starts with Sarah, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's Sarah.
Yes.
I don't know if Ariel's next, but she's
Lynia's next. I think it's Lynia next. Lynia and then Ariel.
Ariel. Then I think it ends off with Aisha, right? I think it's the four dreams, with Aisha's being the shortest. So
yeah, and then that segues into when he figures out, and then and then he's like he's still in the dream, but it's now with Zenith. But the thing I love about this, and I was a little bit disappointed because I like literally as soon as we go from Sarah to Lynia, I had a thought pop up in my mind. I was like, oh, this is so fucking cool. Because Mushoku Tensei is all about just as there are so many ways, because Rudius has had so many instances where he could have lost everything. And just as there's so many ways that we can fall to despair through one slight deviation, there's also so many avenues we can find happiness.
Yeah,
right?
And in this case, like new levels of happiness that, you know, he... Like different ones, like right, but like, still very much like he is happy.
Rudius could have found new happiness at any of these deviations, right? But I think this was actually explicitly stated by Rudius, or at least their Paul in the dream sequence at this point. And I was like, oh man, okay, well they put it up in the forefront. Anyway, I was a little bit. I was like, I had a cool interpretation, but I think it just flat out spells it out by the end of it anyway. But I will say I caught on to it before, so plus one for me.
Yeah, I mean, reading it for the first time was interesting because it was almost like the horror reveals as Paul comes in and suddenly. He's wounded. Oh, he's cut in half. And as I sort of pieced it together, I realized, Paul, because these, I just thought, again, think of the man god as machinations against Rudy in terms of, regret, right? Like, what was it? He regretted being useless and a parasite in his previous life, so he's trying to do better in this one. And obviously, Paul is his greatest regret when he went against the man god and let his father die. His father died in front of him because he was, too weak, right? He wasn't strong enough to protect himself. And so here you have alternate life paths, right? Like if he were to regret being in the situation where he's, letting down the Superd, letting down everyone, well, here's another life path that he could have gone, right? And then what gets him out of these sort of ideal situations is Paul, his greatest regret, right? And I was just like, yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, and what's great about that is also what it represents, right? Because that deviation from the man god's advice was Rudius's greatest source of enlightenment in this new life. Mm-hmm. It's like at Paul's grave, not only did he gain something immense out of that via Roxy, he would have never done that otherwise. Mm-hmm. And that by extension, the hero of the literal world, right? So there's even more in the peripheral that he gains from that for his overarching, family lineage. But it's that notion that he has at Paul's grave. He's like, I only realize after your death and after going through all these trials and tribulations, I'm still a child. I haven't grown up at all. I think, and this is the start, I'm going to give it my all and make sure I do my damnedest to not make a mistake like this. And it's like this great moment. And in this dream sequence, it's as if Rudius being content and staying in here, it's as if it parallels what, the state he would have been in had he just kept following the man god's advice, right? Be with, go frolic with Linnea in person. I mean, literally one of the dreams is where he's with, Linnea, right? So it's kind of cool that Paul, being that representation, is like, remember that devotion you had at my grave, right? You got to move forward on your own path, independent of the man god. You got to blaze your own trail. Remember, you fought the fucking dragon god for this new life, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really, really cool on multiple levels that Paul...
And I guess, by sort of forcing Rudy... Cool, because as we find out, it's like Paul is... it's like a manifestation of Rudy's ideal of Paul as someone who has passed away that he loves and respects, right? And I think that's because obviously Paul also being a manifestation of Rudy's regret forced it, because that's what helps Rudy it pushes him out of the ideal dreams because something's wrong, right? And it's because this is a happiness, but I have gotten more happiness because of, as you were just saying, because he overcame the regret and grief of Paul, through Roxy and through founding this family or increasing the family rather. He already had it with Sylphie, but so just being faced with his greatest regret has also helps him to realize what he has and remember that and ultimately surpass Vita so he can go back to that. And that sort of ties a bit into the finale, right? Where Rudy just he is content with the life that he lived, and that's Paul is a part of that and makes him face that. And that's, and helps him move forward yet again. And it's really good.
It's so good. And it's so fucking, dude, it almost made me cry. The dream that even with Rudius completely lucid about what the fuck is going on, the fact that he lets the dream with Zenith linger for so long. And where he's getting acquainted with a new girl, it's like, oh, this is phenomenal. This is so, he can't, it's like Zenith is here, man. Man. Because that's another big tragedy that befell him after he went to go, against the advice of the man god, right? As he also got a comatose Zenith, or a halfway brain dead Zenith, basically. And the fact that he's like, I want to kind of rest in a world where that mistake is not evident for a little bit, even though I know it's wrong. even though I know this is wrong, everything about this is super invalid. I want to stay just a little bit longer and talk to Zenith. And it's like, it's so good. Oh, that conversation. The final
you said it
conversation
almost made you cry. Yeah, fucking guess. Yeah, it did make me cry. And because I was going to share, because as I mentioned before, my mom's passed away, and I actually have had since it's been 4.5 years. So of course, across that time, like I've had dreams of her like suddenly being alive, and I'm like, well, I'm surprised. I'm like, oh, mom, you're, I'm in my head, I'm like, and then so just like, oh yeah, Rudy just interacting with her mom, and her mom's normal because nothing's wrong, because of course nothing's wrong, and him like wanting to linger. It's like, yeah, I felt that, been there, so whew, God.
Yeah. I didn't even think about how that hit you much harder.
Yeah.
Wow.
But moving on a little bit is just the fact that, like, again, because Rudy just, it's hard for him, like, I don't know, and it's deliberate as I see the sort of result, basically, but, like, he doesn't really get a definitive win in a way that he can be, like, proud of, I suppose, and sure enough, he defeats Abyssal King Vita completely by fucking accident, like, he just had the ring. He was told, you should wear that, and he's like, okay. And then the ring turns out to be the silver bullet to kill some incredibly persistent slime, basically. Fucking horrific body horror thing, and it's just like, oh, you're dead. I didn't do it on purpose. It just happened. Okay.
And I have to say that scene is so visceral to me, where he he vanquishes the dream, and then he awakes again, but in a semi-dream sequence where he's in a dark room. There's a few chairs. He's sitting on one of them. One is like the skeleton with the crown on it, and he deduces that that's supposed to be Raxos, and then Vita's on the other one, and it's like, oh, so cool. And then and then Raxos starts like fucking turning into dust and sweeping away, and then all while Vita is getting smaller and smaller. Like, it's such a cool visual. Like, I had it so intertwined in my mind visually. I was like, oh, this would be so cool animated. I want to see this.
I honestly, like, reading all this, like, and is thinking about the anime, and because I rewatched a couple scenes as I talked about last before, and just I'd like to see what they do with some of this stuff, because I have images in my head, but maybe they'll surpass them or even just give them justice. That'd be cool too. Because I imagine them going all the way, because it's only like 4 or 5 seasons, so very doable.
Well, they announced, I think, as early as season 1 that they're planning on just
there it is,
adapting the entire story. Yeah,
hell,
they have no plans to. I would imagine, unless like they they weren't getting, but I think they get plenty of money. I think they're doing good. So I doubt that plan's going to change.
And if it's
especially because season 3 is going to be crazy, so they're probably going to get even more funding.
Yeah, and it's been successful enough so far. Like, I'm sure domestically, and from what I understand, internationally as well. So like, it was a pretty big deal, particularly season 1. But I can see season 3 getting some hype. So
for sure.
Yeah. But anyway,
I mean, from what I understand, in a lot of just the light novels, I think they're like always, on every platform, they're the number 1 selling light novel.
Oh, like,
pretty universally. From what, at least in the big ones that actually distribute it, at least electronically. In terms of light novels, Mushoku Tensei is always number 1. So it's a popular series as far as light novels go. That's for sure. For good reason, obviously. It's like one of my favorite stories ever. So I hope it's good. I hope it is. Yes, Vita is vanquished. He cries. He dies. It's over.
The one thing I guess it's more recontextualized from later, but I was just thinking about how how Rudy, because when he realizes is that Vita's gone. The Super don't have anything holding back their plague. They're gonna die. This was a suicide bombing, right? It wasn't like like an accidental death. It was like, no, it was but then, as I feel like, because as it ends off with the interlude, we find out like the way because Vita says that like he did want to, like he was like I guess thinking of geese, and he says like, oh, he did want to try and cure the Superb. Like he was thinking like, oh, maybe I can help them while I'm inhabiting them, and like being influenced by geese, and so I thought that okay, so it wasn't really a suicide bombing, is what it was like. No, he was legitimately attempting to stave off their curse or their sickness for a little bit, but as he was enacting the man god's will. But and also the interlude was just interesting seeing because I assume did they state it later? But that Raxos basically served Bodigadi was my implication, or the implication I was getting, because they didn't directly name
maybe because it did say he did serve a demon king, right?
Yeah, and I just assumed Bodigadi because I'm like, well, why not name them? And it's like, well, maybe. I
didn't think that actually,
especially because at this point. Throw away the because the extra chapter from last time, because I'm pretty sure reading the web novel, Bodigadi just comes in out of nowhere, right? Like I'm thinking of the build up without that extra chapter, and if you're reading the web novel, Bodigadi just comes in at the end of volume 25.
That's why I was telling you that in the last episode, like all these extra chapters have been so good for Bodigadi, because that was the one thing I was a little bit on the web novel. I was like, he's good, but like I don't know. As one of the final obstacles, he's not like Orsted,
because he does get some stuff after this, but like compared to that chapter, like I could see how you might find him be like, this is good, but it's definitely like feels a little lacking in a sense.
Yeah.
But so
and we even get another one that contextualizes him more in I think volume 25's extra chapter, right? Or wait, no. It was the extra chapter in this one.
I think it was just an interlude. Well, because I'm looking at.
I don't think there
were no extra chapters. So if the interludes were in the web novel, then you would have read it. Because I don't know. I remember from what I recall because I would ask you, and you mentioned at least some of the interludes. So
it is. That's what I meant by extra chapter. It's the first interlude in volume 25 called.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, because that one I assume you would have gotten from the web novel, but again, not as quite as much as that the extra chapter from before. So, yeah. But anyway, and also, I'm especially glad for the Vita chapter, because they just casually mentioned stickies before, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's very specifically a type of slime, and that explained it, where it's like still a bit of a silly, like, Japanese use of presumably Japanese use of an English word, or maybe it is just like a simple word in Japanese that they just translated literally to a simple word to mean like, attached thing that attaches, because like they're like, it's just such a like, oh, the stickies, and it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cute. What do they do? Oh, they take over your body and rule your, like, they're like cordyceps, but for and it's like, oh god,
they like
that's
stick
horrifying.
To the inside of your body, bro. That makes sense.
Just definitely like non-threatening name for very threatening being. So anyway,
I mean, before the other interlude, we got the plague's happening. Rudy's like, what the freak? Confronts, or wait, does he confront Orsted about it at this point? No, he doesn't. He does that later, doesn't he?
Well, because first he gets Cliff's health, because I'm looking at my note. Well, okay, first, I think he's unpacking the Vita stuff and like realizing that Vita was, maybe not the smartest. And I just like the line of like, it's a relief to know that there are Rudius level blockheads on the man god's side, and I'm just like, oof.
That's pretty funny.
Oof.
That's a pretty funny one. Rudius level blockheads on the man god's side. Another funny moment is when he's like first getting woken up. He's like, oh, come on, Vita. Now it's Norn. Come on now, like you gotta get better material than this, bro. I got no attraction to Norn. Norn's like, the fuck are you talking about, bro?
Oh yeah, that's right. It was kind of funny where he's like, oh yeah, I guess I've had thoughts about Sarah and Ariel and Linnea, but definitely not Aisha. He says honestly. I mean, I think she's hot, but she's not my sister, so that's beside the point, I suppose.
True.
Anyway,
hopefully Vita will pay you a visit tonight.
But yeah, then you get the Cliff, and Cliff is just so good. Like, he just comes and he's like, well, I especially like that it's specifically mentioned about the Karishka eye, or Kishirika eye, being able to detect food poisoning, and I just thought about how that's so fitting for her, because like she's hungry. So of course she could like, oh no, this is food. This will give me food poisoning. I'm not
And
gonna eat that.
I love when Cliff starts reading off exactly what it says to his eye. And it's all in her slang. It's so funny.
Oh man, very funny.
That they would be highly nutritious. It's just like, yeah. That's
and of course the revelation that it's presumably just mana concentration with the long-lived peoples that they could, so they're able to figure out. Though that said, the Sokus grass is also like brings immortality. And I was like, oh shit, are they just going to make the already long-lived Superd, like, immortal even more so? Oh, well, all right. Sure. I mean, as far as demons go, like, the Superd, it's funny how, like, they're seen as demons, but they're, like, some of the fucking nicest ones. Like, they're so cool. I mean,
look at the Negers. They're considered demons.
Yeah, that's true.
They're just blue-haired small people that don't do anything.
They read minds and farm land, kind of.
Their demonic ability is they read each other's minds. That's it.
Not anyone else's apparent. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't. No, I don't.
I think as far as we know, they can't read people outside their races. It's like a two-way. The two-way communication has to be linked. Otherwise, it's a no-go. Because as we saw, that's the problem with Roxy. Since she doesn't have her linked up, she can't even hear anything. It's just like it's just like, wow, what are you doing?
Yeah. Oh god, that's right. There was the fucking the first interlude. Oh, it was so good with Lucy.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say earlier, but we had to talk about Cliff coming in and being his genius ass self, you know. The Norn Lucy chapter, super cute, super good. At the end, Lucy's resolved. She's like, "Go, Sister Norn, go, do it."
Well, because like, I don't know. See, it's like, so I do like the ending where it is, and I find it satisfying. But there's also like a noteworthy part of me that's like, but I want to see more with all these characters, and I'm so fucking glad that there's these side novels to give us exactly that. Because like we only get like one Eris, like we get two, because we do get a little bit one where they like, oh shit, something's wrong with Rudy at the end of this volume. But and then we get the one chapter earlier, but it's like, I don't know, I just feel like there's just so many characters and there's so much room for dynamics but obviously the story is so focused on Rudy and his war with the man god. Like, I understand, like, as a story to be focused, it's like, yeah, sure, but the greedy part of me wants all that little side stuff. Like, even for One Piece, like Oda's mentioned years ago that he's like, I'd love to do more like just slice of life, just fun interactions with the Straw Hats, but then like if he indulged in that, then we'd probably still be in Dressrosa, right? Like, I understand not doing that, but I also want to see it, and so I'm looking forward to next time for that. But this chapter also gives us some of that, but more in a specific or important context, because it's just like the way that Lucy has sort of like framed family protecting other family in a sense, and the way that she's like, I love the interaction where it's like, I'll protect you, Norn, and she's like, I'll protect you, Lucy, and it's like, no, you have to protect Ruijerd, where it's like, you know, and just like, or all like, Lucy's resolving herself to help Norn when she needs it, because she cares, like, she loves Norn in the same way that Norn loves Ruijerd, right? Because Lucy's feeling lonely, and whenever she feels alone, Norn's right there to help her. And like, and then, so it's so good. Like, I'm gonna grow up to be like, and it's the fact that it's Norn, the average one, right? The fuck up. Like, but no, Lucy is surrounded by all these she, like, one of the first people she meets, like, in her, like, relatively to her life is fucking Orsted, the strongest person in the world. But she's like, no, Norn is the one I want to grow up to be just like. And it's like, oh my, it's so good. Holy shit. Yeah, like, it's so good for both of them, I think. And I was like, that's so good. Such a good chapter.
No, you make a great point. Getting to see just like a whole novel of just like interactions like this, it's going to be a treat, because we're already in love with these characters. So
yeah,
some of which I don't even know. Like, I don't know how Aris is going to be. I don't know how.
Yeah, I look at the cover of 26 and I'm like, I want to know your stories. Like, because they all die except for like
apparently
two of them.
Like fucking Lily, like, you know, because we're out of the Roxy season where, you know, it's always Lara. Like, apparently Lily takes over the research for the fucking
she
magic armor.
mass produces magic armors.
Yeah, like, bro, come on. We gotta get some deets on these kids, man. We gotta get some deets.
Like, yeah, this is like, yeah, exactly. Specifically, like one of the kids we get like 0 scenes with. And it's like, oh shit, no, she does this though, and it's like, anyway.
Yeah,
well, that said, I will say, because like there obviously we'll get more stories, but then there's also like a whole like for the sequel, because it's like maybe we'll get more her, because she'll be alive just like Laura's alive, right? And some of the other family members were. Some of them will be fucking old or dead, but she'll be alive. But I was gonna say, because I think as far as like characters who I expect to get more stuff in the sequel series, Laplace is probably like the biggest one. Like just the fact that we never saw like. Someone has to be updating the world powers thing, right? I guess, or just like does it update automatically? Is with some spell? I don't know, but like we never saw a fucking hide or hair of Technique God Laplace if he does, because people are like, oh, does he exist or not? I don't know, but it's like, well, if he shows up, it would make sense that he'd show up in the context of the revival of Demon God Laplace, right? So yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking of like him as a character.
You know, it is kind of like, funny. Oh, keep going. Sorry.
I was just going to say how it's like, as Laplace is like one of the most important characters in the story, and we know nothing about him, really. Like, we know some of the things that he did, but we don't know about, like, what is this, like, why did he want to fight in the Demon War? Like, why, like, we know bits, but then we know after he was split in half, specifically from the Demon God, but, like, we don't get his perspective, and I feel like, especially thinking about how, Refugin has, like, humanized certain characters, like Pax especially, right, who seem, like, horrible, and it's like, well, what is Laplace's deal? Like, how does he process the world now that he's been split in half? Like, what? I imagine we're going to get stuff around him.
Yeah, we only know, we only got, like, the surface hint, which is that their hatred, the hatred was split, right? For the man god. It was for
one in the man and one
Demon
god,
God Laplace, it's man, for Technique God, it's God. Just God in a whatever sense. Just God and the idea of gods, maybe? I don't know. Because we know so little about him, but he's number one. He created the power system, which I've always thought this. Like, I guess I haven't mentioned it yet on the podcast. When I think of Technique God, the first person that comes to mind is actually Orsted, because he knows so many techniques.
Exactly. Oh, well, because I remember my earlier misunderstanding where it's like, oh, he has the ability that if someone in the world learns a technique, he can just learn that technique. But it's like, no, he's just lived so long through the loops that he's been able to learn all these techniques like anyone can. So he's just spent that much time on mastering all these abilities. So, because you're right. That I hadn't thought about that in a while, because that's not how his ability actually works. But Orsted is very good at techniques. So you would think that he'd be the technique god, but he's not.
Maybe there's some linkage there. Probably not. They're probably unrelated. Well, they're related in the sense that he's a dragonkin, but whatever. And then moving on, where Rudius is like, I gotta go. Now that the plague has been cured and everyone pooped blue, I gotta go to the capital and tell them that the Superd are epic and please do not go kill them.
Well,
and then the king is like, yes, let me send these two inconspicuous fellows. Yes, let me send you. These are my personal god. They're very powerful. Yes. Goodbye. Good day. And we're just like, all right, let's go. Man. I'm gonna do the best PR move this generation's ever fucking seen. And let me tell you something about this, guys. Okay, I shit you not. I forgot what was coming somehow. I forgot what was coming, and oh my god, were my socks blown off again. I will say, it wasn't when the revelation happened. It was when Rudius goes on the bridge, and he notes, he's like, he keeps wanting to go first. He's going home. There's, he's going behind me now. Like, I'd prefer to be, either in front or behind both of them, but whatever works. And I was like, wait a second, this is like, my alarm bells are, this seems very familiar. And then immediately I was like, oh my god, I remember.
It's almost like I've read the story before.
Oh my god, I remember now. Oh, how did I not remember? This is like crazy. This is fucking crazy.
I mean, I got to react to that the first time just because the worst part is I read that. I was like, I'll just read a little bit before I go into work. Or no, not a little bit. I couldn't stop fucking reading. It's fucking Mushoku Tensei. And I got around there, and it's like, I couldn't stop, and then I got to go to work thinking about, Rudy just got turbo fucked by Galfalion and Kalman the Third, Alec. And it's like, oh no.
Okay.
Like just hitting the low point of the story arc and just fuck. Yeah, it was very well, especially because I just love how it's just very simple, where it's like it's not like they use some like Giga Brain strategy. It's like no, like even Geese is like just being very cordial to Rudy, and it's like, oh, here, hey, Geese could have some advice for you. Don't assume every magic item is unique, and it's like because it's like he knows Rudy's like using this exact same thing. He's been observing him since he got into the country, and then he just used the exact same magic item to take him out functionally, as it seemed, so to speak. So yeah, it was just really just simple and effective of just like
Yeah.
the level of fuck, and then we find the ogre god Marta just fucks up the base, and they don't have teleportation anymore, and so we see Zanaba and Eris and Roxy, and they're like, uh-oh. And it's just like immediately the situation goes bad, and it's very good how that is presented, I think, because yeah, even you rereading it gotcha. So yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, and then like I didn't remember like every detail, but just like how powerless Rudius is. Like fucking Alec didn't even have to lift a finger. It was all golf out. Like Rudius is like, I need a arm chopped off. All right, let me just. Oh no, my arm is just fucking. Okay, well, let me just move out of the. Oh no, now my back is sliced. Well, at least I got my armor version 2. Oh wait, I'm falling. Okay, bye.
Yeah, no, Rudy was just completely helpless. Yeah. Oh god,
like, it is crazy. Like it's just like it is actually like butthole clenching. Like, oh my god, this dude is doomed. But you know, the two fucking saving graces, you know, the ring, and now we got Atofe to the rescue with what she gave Rudius. All
real quick
all
before
volume 24.
Yep. Before we get into the next volume, real quick, just want to make 2 notes from a little earlier. Rudy got his fucking egg on rice, and he's so fucking happy with soy sauce. And Norn's it's okay.
It's important.
And Rudy's like about having a fucking like he's crying, and I don't think he was literally crying, but he really liked it. And also just like Orsted blocking the balls from the children.
I was gonna mention that.
He's so fucking cute. Yeah. Orsted's so cute.
he's like. Rudy's like, you want me to tell him the stuff? And like how Orsted responds is just so funny. He's like, this is barely, you know, this can't even penetrate my dragon aura. Like it's like this is trivial. I think he says these attacks are trivial or something like that. Like he's in a battleground or something. Like, bro, these are kids playing. Man.
It was adorable, and you know, compounding that with we get the first short story where I love the way it ends, where it's like Orsted was gloomy, so we tried to cheer him up, but that's a story for another day. That's a story for another day. We get that in the 26.1, do we not? No. That was 26.1 I was quoting from. That's how it ends. There was the whole thing with Rudy Jordan, and they made a child cry. I don't have much to say about that one, so we'll just talk about it now, I guess. But yeah, they just the child cries, and Eris comes in and helps them, and then they're like, oh yeah, I went and comforted Orsted, who was moping after having made a child cry, and it's just like he's so cute. But anyway, back to the serious stuff. But yeah. Fucking Sandor. Well, I do love how the nicknames work out, because we have like Kalman the First, Sandor, and Alec, and that therefore, even though like they all technically have like very similar names, we can refer to them individually with and comfortably. So, but I was just gonna say, it's like, yeah, just the way he frames being Kalman the Second, where it's just like, I thought it would be cool. Like, he's just such a dork, even though he's like fucking literally like a couple hundred years old. Very funny. But yeah, before that, obviously, as we get Doga is really strong, and Rudy was saved by the Atofe box.
Well, just the whole fucking... I love just seeing Alec alone, and like he's waiting for Rudius, and he's like, oh, Rudius is still not here. He's supposed to rendezvous with me, and he's like, someone's here. And he's like stand up. He's like inching his way into the basement with his fucking pole arm out. He's like, oh man.
Oh yeah.
If you're here, announce yourself. And then like he realizes he's like, no one is here. This is so fucking embarrassing. he runs away. It's just so. I love Sandor. He is so good. He is so good.
Yeah. No, I was surprised because I was like, even like literally like after finishing 24 while reading it, I was like, oh yeah, these two guys, I don't know. They're fine, but I was very satisfied with that, especially particularly Sandor, how much he got out of the last 2 volumes, and I was like, yeah, no, Sandor good. So Doga's good too, but he's I don't know, he's kind of like Chad in a way, in that just he's like a reliable rock. He's just there, and he's just, you can trust him to fight and be strong, even if he's not the strongest, So it's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, and I love. We get 2 little things too whenever he gets back to the to the ravine where they're scouting it out. Well, even before that, Alex says something really interesting on the bridge before Rudius falls. Alec goes, "Oh, was with you? This is easy pickings. Now, if you were still accompanied by the other guy, might have had a little bigger, we had a bigger fight on our hands. Like that might have been a challenge actually." And it's like, oh. That's okay. That's why they put him out, because he would have actually. Okay, well, who is this guy?
I was worried because I didn't think about it until after, but like because he was mentioning how asleep he was, because he was like, oh, he wasn't even snoring, and I was like, oh fuck, did he kill Doga? And it's like, no, he drugged him so that he would sleep better and more deeply, so that they could leave without Doga coming along. Right, but as they mentioned later, but I definitely had that thought of just like, oh shit, they killed. Well, because obviously that would have been a bad idea. But no, then we see that line of just like, oh yeah, no, Doga's really strong, and he's obviously he's North God, he'd be stronger, but still can't take Doga lightly, and that's exactly. And then
that confidence where he's like, wait, these footsteps. He's like, oh, don't worry, we don't have to go. So I love that so much where Sandor, he's so confident in his pupil. He's just like, oh, Doga's there. Okay, these footsteps, these is obviously Doga. So, they'll make it out. It's like, goddamn.
Yeah. Sick. Oh, surrounded by Earth Wyverns or dragons. Yeah, they'll be good. It'll be okay.
He one shots him. And then just when Rudius wakes up and he's like asking him questions, and then it's revealed that he's talking to a North Emperor. And then how Doga responds, he's like, "Master says I killed monsters good." Just matter of fact.
Int may be your dumb stat, but you don't need Int to be a great, powerful warrior.
He's so cute. He's so cute. Master says I kill monsters good. And Rudius just elates him so much. He's like, "Man, you're really reliable, dude." He's like, "Oh, thanks." He goes, "Uh-huh." That's his normal. That's his trademark response. And anything, "Uh-huh." Uh-huh. Yep. I love it. Doga's so cute.
Anyway,
by the way, I probably shouldn't say this. Okay, I'm not going to say this. I have a little bit of information on Doga. A little bit of spoilery thing about there is a little. I'll only say there's a little something with Doga, and one of these extra readings we're going to be doing. So he's going to get a little bit of something. That's all.
That's cool. That's cool. We'll. See
I was going to hint a little bit more, but I don't want to say anymore. I just want to hype you up for some Doga greatness, because I don't even know what it completely entails.
Okay, yeah, no, because you have not read the novels, but you've probably heard some spoilers in the one we alluded to earlier.
I have indeed.
Okay. But anyway, anyway, getting into the fight proper against Alec and Galvalion and Marta, Ogre God. I think it's so funny how in that opening exchange of words, Rudy just sees an opportunity and he just fucking dumps Alec down the ravine, and it's so fucking funny. Oh God.
Well, I wanted to say before that,
go ahead.
When Rudius and Doga make it back, and Eris and Roxy are already there, they've already made it back, and Roxy's Eris rather is arguing we need to go now, and then Sandor's trying to calm her down. She's like, no, they're fine. We got to prepare. And she's like, "Well, I'm leaving now." And then Rudius just casually remarks, "Well, if you want to make it out, you're gonna need to go to this place that we did, and then do the water and stuff." And it's like Rudius is like, "Hey, what's up?" I thought that response was so Rudius. It was just like, "Hey, by the way, if you want to do that, you're gonna have to go through these steps, okay? flexing a little bit, but it's cute. Oh, and then that's where he confronts Sandor. He's like, first of all, who the fuck are you, bro? Who the fuck are you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And he gets revelation, and we get more of his dorky side. Yeah, but what his explanation in actuality is he's not telling Rudius obviously the entire story. The reason why, the actual reason, is really, really cool. We get more of that at the beginning of next volume. Why the outline of exactly why he hung up the name North God Coleman II, because it was very much tied to his journey as a hero, and his perspective on that. Now it's super cool. Coleman II ends up becoming a super, super complex, really cool character by the end of the series. I love this character so much. I love all these characters. They're so great. That's part of what makes this final stretch so great, because it's like somehow Rifujin finds time for a lot of these characters and really, really makes them sing. I think it's not just the main guys. It's not just the final boss Bodygotti. It's all these people, and even a little bit more of Orsted at the end. We'll talk about that later. But yeah. So getting on to the actual fight. He's a dork. He gets fucking plummeted by Rudius, but Rudius does not know that the King Dragon Blade is forced to be
like at first I thought, because first to talk about Alec a little bit is I feel like he's very much meant to be a sort of like referent or parody, corruption, whatever you want to call it, of like, he feels very like a shonen character. Like when you look at his design, and he's got like the spiky hair and a big old sword, like he feels like the idea of a generic shonen character in a sense. Yeah. Like not any actual shonen character from any period, but like the idea of like if you combine them all sort of thing. And just like, but then like, he's like him being like a naive kid in a sense, but like taken to like, oh, he's being manipulated by the bad guys to fight Rudy, and like he's like he becomes the Demon King in a sense, fighting the hero instead of the hero he wants to be, as he frames it later. So I don't know, he's just he gets interesting stuff too, but I just wanted to comment on his just general like vibe, I suppose, while we were talking about Alec.
Yeah, for sure. And there's more to discuss on him. For sure. But
first we get exactly. Maybe my highlight of this volume, because holy fuck, Golfalion versus Eris was so fucking good.
Oh man, it's so short, but god damn is it sweet. God damn is it sweet.
Oh my god. It's
like it is. Yeah, you can start. I know this is your first time reading it. So.
Okay, so yeah, well, I mean, because just the way that like. Because he and Orsted both sort of act similar. Well, he was also like as similar to Eris because like like he's trying to piss her off because like he and which of course goes in like it turns out like he was trying to use a water god technique. But then like Eris like as we saw with Orsted, she's changed from the person who Orsted knew her as, and she's not strung along by the the water god technique. But then. Also, well, see, just like the fact that like she was confident here because she had Ruijerd at her back, and I thought about that in the context of when we were more or less sort of first introduced to Golfalion properly, at least in regards to Eris, was Eris came to the Sword Sanctum and she fought Nina and Gino and was teaching them very important lessons regarding like how their sanctum works versus how the real world works. I was just thinking about how like because he was kind of like focused on dueling Eris and he didn't see Ruijerd. Like not that he knew he was there, he just didn't like he didn't take Ruijerd seriously, right? Like so like Eris was using Eris had faith in Ruijerd that Gull he doesn't know this guy, so like, and as a result he underestimated them, and then of course on top of that you have just like he's he was the sword god, he's the former sword god, and like as they frame it, like he's someone who had always been winning, he was born, and he's never dealt with failure before. And so his life fell out of order. So he went with the man god because the man god helped him restore order to the chaos that his life was falling into. But how did I put it? Like obviously the man god doesn't actually help people, sure enough, like Galfalion wasn't really helped. Like he was still like trapped by his idea of being the sword god before, and here he ends up like using, but he doesn't trust in who he was, so to speak. So that was a little messy though. I was getting a bunch of ideas out of the fight, but he uses the water god file because he lost once and he was just expecting to lose again, as he says. So that was a lot. It was a dense fight though. So hopefully, what I was trying to say got across.
I mean, where do I even start in some of my interpretations of this? I think it speaks so much to Eris, especially. So Galfalion is defined by his inability to lose as the sword god. We know as the hierarchies command, as far as sword god is concerned, there can only be one. He is defined by his inability to lose. Whereas Eris has encountered setback after setback. Mm-hmm. She's needed help after help. Goes back to even when she's fighting in Atofei's domain. And she needed that help from Roxy. Otherwise, she might have not even been able to defeat this random North God style swordsman that she should have been easily able to defeat if you're just ranking them on a scale, right? Mm-hmm. But because of the shrewd, the trickery. And she's been through these setbacks time and time again. But it doesn't matter to Eris. Eris doesn't even care about her title. Sword King, whatever. She could be a Sword Emperor. Damn near maybe even a Sword God. She could even challenge fucking Gino. She'd have a pretty good chance challenging Gino. Mm-hmm. Gino, probably, right? She doesn't care about that. She defeated Ghislaine already, which is a precursor to her becoming Sword Emperor. She is not asking for that. What matters to her is she's there to fight with Rudius. It doesn't matter the setback. As long as she keeps Rudius alive, and as long as she protects the family, that's what matters. This goes back to Galfalion. What was his question, right? To Gino is like, or to Nina, like, what would you rather marry Gino or would you rather become sword god? She's like, well, of course sword god. It's like, you've learned nothing. Well, Gal, you say yourself on your deathbed, it's like, I got a partner and then I had many things that I needed that I needed to do. They were my responsibilities. I needed to keep the sanctity in my dojo intact. I needed to train students. I needed to do this and I needed to do that. Well, it's like, you needed to do that. It was your responsibility. But was it that you liked doing it? Was it fulfilling? Did you ever want to beat the dragon god? Did that go away? Like, God, like what was being a mentor to you? Was it literally just the title of sword god, or was it everything else? Because when Gal when Gal has these spiels to Gino, he's talking about all the peripheral stuff, all the things that aren't exclusively titled to sword god, like being a mentor to someone. It seemed like that's what gave Gal his power. That's what gave Gal the weight behind his sword, the speed behind his sword. Mm-hmm. But it's as if he intrinsically tied that to his title, when in actuality, it has nothing to do with the title. Even we see Eris as the Sword King, training so many people, having a fulfilling life, being beside Rudius, independent of the title. The title goes only so far as it exemplifies her skill, and she can do that, right? She can match up to the title with her skill. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, Gal conflated the fuck out of his title. And as soon as he lost it, he deluded himself into believing everything was lost with it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, oh yeah, before I had this title, I wanted to be the dragon god. When in actuality, he gave that inheritance to Eris. Why did he do that? Because he didn't care about it anymore. He's now, the only reason he's grasping for it again is because he's got nothing. Because he deluded himself into believing everything that mattered to him was intrinsically tied to the title of sword god. Yeah. When in actuality, it really had nothing to do with it. So, whereas Eris doesn't tie anything to her title, doesn't tie anything to her statement of might. Therefore, that is her strength. She's lost nothing. Gal even says as much. He realizes at the end, oh, you've lost nothing with this new path you've taken. That's where I went wrong. It's so fucking good. It's so short, but it says so much. Like
well, because I was even just thinking about how that conversation with Gino and Nina, because in the moment, I definitely read it as like, oh, here's this wide sword master saying that like you don't need to revolve your life around the sword. But then like as we find out how he thinks about his life with the sword, it's like he was good with the sword, he never lost, so he kind of like he had to fit. He lived in a way to fit what he felt like the ideal sword god needed to be like. and then when he lost that title, he sort of lost who he was. So in that way, I'm now thinking about that conversation with Gino and stuff, where he's like, maybe it's less that he was like, or maybe he was thinking like, these are good lessons I'm going to teach, but like to him, it's also there's this idea of like, I'm always going to be the sword god. So if you obsess yourself with being the sword god, well, you're never going to beat me, so you need to have a more fulfilling life than just beating me. Well, and then Gino does beat him, and then it's like he's the one who's lost, right? So just that sort of like the way that conversation came across as someone who was wise and understanding because what they were saying was correct, but ultimately he didn't have that understanding of what he was really talking about because he lacked perspective of these people striving to be or striving to become better in the sword sanctum, I guess. So I don't know. I didn't think too much about that prior conversation, but you brought it up and I was thinking about it. It's like, yeah, that's interesting. And not on top of what you were saying, but I just had further thoughts. It's like, yeah, it's just there's so much to pull out of that fight. It's so good. And it's literally just like two sword slashes. It's just two sword slashes.
Yeah, and just the fact that despite how much Eris has grown, Ruijerd is still able to accomplish the same role he had in Dead End. Despite Eris being ahead of him now, he can still fulfill that role as her shadow, as her protective shadow. And I love how it's literally in the novel described that way. That Ruijerd is her protective shadow in these fights, even against Kalman III. He's shadowing her, and it making up for whenever she missteps a little bit. He's there. Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's so fucking good. And it's like, but that's another thing, right? That's another layer to this, right? Gaul's alone. He's alone. He left everything behind. Eris because Eris now has garnered some of Rudius's power being with Rudius, because Rudius's greatest strength is his unity, all the people he pulls from, and not just he not just grabs these people, but he grabs them internally too, and makes them want to associate with him. It's the same for Eris. Eris has garnered some of that strength now, being with Rudius. That's why she's got Ruijerd here with her. That's part of her strength. That's why she does beat Galfalion, because just like Rudius, this is part of her strength. She's not alone. She's got someone like Ruijerd. She's got people like Ghislaine, right? Oh man, it's so good. Obviously that part is very shonen coded, and I'm a shonen head, so
it's for sure, because it's just like obviously the rest of the fights are good, but that when you say shonen coded, I think of specifically the way like we read like the fights, especially about being like this contrast between these two characters, and the fight as them putting that contrast into action, and then like playing their ideals against each other, right? In a sense, or their faults and stuff. So yeah, that fight just has so much going on in that way that not that the other fights don't have anything, but like there's again, it's just so dense for how short it is too, especially. But I was also going to say just a related concept to think about.
One thing, but before you go on, I P fiction is too strong right now. I gotta go let loose the P fiction real quick. I'll be right back.
Actually, you know what? I also have to pee, but I'll remember what I was going to say. So let's just do that real quick. Gotcha. Double P fiction. So what I was going to bring up was how there's this idea. I forget what I don't know if where the idea comes from, but I remember hearing about it in a couple other contexts. But there's like the idea of the uncrowned king, which is basically the idea of someone in like say a sport being the best at it, but never like being recognized for that. And I was just thinking about that in the context of Eris, because like I don't know if she would be the sword god, but like that's just the fact that like she doesn't care. And she is outside of the system, so it's like in theory she could, maybe she would have been a sword, like because there was even the talk about with Gino and stuff, the idea of sword gods, being lost to history because they only held that title for like an hour or a couple days before being defeated by another sword god in particular chaotic periods, and obviously it remains to be seen if Gino it would be a remembered sword god, or if he would be one of the ones lost to history. But I do, wonder if like, maybe Eris, maybe she could have been sword god if she gave a shit. But like, obviously she doesn't, So I don't know. I was just thinking about that.
It's good stuff. Eris is one of the best female characters in fiction for a reason, by my decree. So
she's also
more
hot.
Stuff to talk about her. She's very sexy, very sexy woman. That is also the case. Let us not forget. And now, going on to the Common 3 side of things. Alec. Lil Alec. Lil Pup Alec.
Yes.
He's insanely strong. So much so that even with the sword, even accounting for it, our boy, the father over here, is like, man, he was a lot weaker last time I saw him. Fuck, guys, I think we're fucked.
Oh man. Well, and even like, especially like I was really thinking about the shonen protagonist thing when he has like a fuck. It's not really a Kenpachi moment, but he does kind of go like, "Hey, did you know you could use a sword with two hands?" And then he starts using his sword with two hands, and no, that's just activate the magic. But it did make me think of Kenpachi, even though it wasn't the same at all.
Yeah. I didn't think of Kenpachi actually, but that's a good. Obviously, yeah, that would be the that would be the link right there. Might even be inspired. Who knows? Probably not, because it's not.
Yeah, it's not similar at all. Very similar. Aside from like using a sword with one hand and then switching to two hands and becoming much more powerful. But again, the purpose and context of those are quite different. So yeah.
But and just the fact that he's during the entire confrontation, Alec is just discrediting the fuck out of Rudius. He's like,
dude,
this is from my vantage, this is a 1v1 right now. This is a 1v1. This Rudius guy, nobody. And he's almost kind of right, because Rudius can't do much.
Yeah, well, but it's also like, especially I just feel it's just so perfect regarding just like, because one of the big contrasts that got out of the two of them was how like Alec is sort of like, he's one thing that Rudy has never been, and that's like arrogant, right? And like when Rudy was going to fight Linnea and Persena, he's like, I better take precautions and approach this very smartly. And Zanaba's like, I don't think it's that they're going to be that strong though, right? But like that was like Rudy never really got complacent in his own strength, because like Perugi's being like, oh yeah, you scratched Orsted's like hand, so you probably think your dick is huge, and Rudy's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Right? And so here's Alec, who's like, I'm the big dick hero. Who's this fucking mage brat? Whatever. I don't give a shit. I'm going to ignore him. And it's like, oh, well, he's the one who defeated you, Rip Bozo. So, I just thought of that in regards to that contrast of just how they're so different.
Yeah, and I just love the explanation of like how like Alec with the sword, like the way he maneuvers, like just when you think you have an opening, you never have an opening, because he can just maneuver with the gravity in such a way that he's always on stable footing, basically. And I love that concept. That concept where he just becomes like already being god tier and then just going up even more on a level, because he's got like this ultimate blade that accounts for all of like his potential shortcomings. Just makes him like, potentially just, when he's wielding that blade, he's just the greatest swordsman in the world, essentially. Like that's kind of what I gather from this, because it's just that much of a, it's that much of an aid to him about, the King Dragon.
Which I especially like the way that like, Sandor was like, oh, like we get the full, I think we get an interlude later, or we get something later where he talks about, or maybe he's just talking about it, where he lost, like, he lost his sword and he nearly got his ass kicked by a random dude with his sword, and that was just this huge existential crisis for him. He was like, oh, like, wait, am I strong, or was I just using a strong sword? And that led to him, like, especially like the way with the staff, it's like he, as he explains to Rudy before, it's like, well, these other swordsmen are just trying to use, increase their range, so instead of like training to have a longer range, I'll just have a longer range from the start, right? And just use a simple weapon, and then call yourself a user of the North God sword style. And it's like, that okay. But well, even then, there's like even a difference in like ideas of what the North God style is, where like because Sandor was training, win no matter what, and then that led to weirdos like Auber and where Alec is very much like.
I was literally about to just say that. Yeah,
Alec
is admonishing all of them. Well, he starts by first admonishing his own dad. He's like, "You're using a polearm, dude. You're not using a sword. This is sacrilege. Like, I don't recognize this as North God style. Like, I don't recognize them." And he's talking about people like Auber. By extension, he's like, "Oh, this must be the origin. This change in you must be the origin of all these like eccentrics." Like, and he mentions Auber. A sick mention, mind you, but and then it's just, oh man, it's so cool, because Alexander's response, or rather Sandor's response, is well, with the polearm, I can feel myself becoming stronger. This was not the case when I wielded the King Dragon Blade. It accounted for my weaknesses, therefore I couldn't turn those weaknesses into strength, rather. I thought that was such a cool retort. I was like, oh man, that's sick.
And then, oh wait, maybe I don't have as much to say about this section of the fight.
I don't really either. It's just Rudius is struggling.
Yeah.
You know, Kalman II is getting whittled down little by little, tiring out little by little, and it's like, oh, they're on the ropes. But in comes the rest of the squadron via Eris and Ruijerd, to which little Alec is like, what a scrub. Of course he lost. Come on now. He lost his bite. He lost his teeth after he lost the title of God. Unfortunate.
That's one thing I was going to say, because I was I didn't mention it, but I was a little confused reading the previous extra chapter that introduced us to Alec, basically, because I remember Geese mentioning something about idolizing him in the past or something like that, and then but then he also kept describing him as a youth. So I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because Geese ain't no spring chicken. But like this guy is like supposed to be young, and so that was just something that clicked into place when we find out that he's Northgard Kalman III, and it's like because he still looks young because he's part of Mortal Demon, and even though he's at least a century old, so it's like, oh, because I remember I even asked you, it's like, have we been interested in this character? Do we know this character's name? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, well, yeah, they were literally looking for him in that volume, or if not that volume, the next volume. Oops. I didn't piece that one together. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I thought about it. But yeah, we get, Eris takes off Alec's arm, and he, especially, I guess, the way, because after that, he talks about, like, how the reason he really wants to fight Orsted here and now is because he thinks he'll like never get an opportunity again. And I was just thinking about how him being obviously he's decades old, but like he's still very like his perspective, he's very much a child, right? And I was just thinking about like, I have to fight Orsted now or I'll never ever get another chance. I've only got like 1,000 years to live as a immortal demon, right? Like just that, because I feel like that happens a lot, especially like nowadays with how like fast society is even moving, right? Where you just, and maybe it's even older than that, but just like, you feel like you're 20 or you're 30 and you just feel like, like, oh, I can't do anything. I'm too old or whatever. Or things are happening too fast, or just like, I don't know, just people having, like, kids having a warped sense of time, I guess, because like, like as Orsted said, Alec found him in every timeline in some, like at some point, right? Like Orsted could not avoid fighting Alec, right? No, like, so if anything, like their conflict was inevitable, but here he is having this like hiccup in the road that is Rudy and gang, and basically going like, I need to push through this and fight Orsted or it's hopeless, so yeah.
Yep. And he but before he even loses his arm, he does big epic blast, and I love the detail in that, how they're like floating at first, how Rudius is like trying to counter it. He's like trying to blow people away, but it's too massive, and they all get blown away anyway, including him. And I love how I love Sandor's immediate reaction. He's like, "We're doomed!" Like, immediately, he's like, "Oh, we're doomed."
Surely Sandor has a great plan to get us out of the situation. Sandor, we're fucked.
We're fucked. Run! Like, oh, okay, oh shit. Northgard II saying this, we are fucked. Like, and yep, they get got for a little while, but they come back in fighting form.
Yep, they knock that ass into the ravine, and Rudy gives chase in his magic armor.
And yeah, the most crazy thing, old Rudius here, I love the explanation. He's like, I just had a feeling if I let him go in this moment, I would lose something important. I can't define exactly what that is, but like it might even lead to our ultimate loss. I need to go in here now. It's like, Fuck yeah, let's go. The champion versus the hero matchup. Let's fucking go. That's what I was saying, by the way. I was kind of hinting toward this fight. That's literally what I was doing.
I see.
I had this fight envisioned in my mind because that's why the extra chapter was so cool to me. Because at the end, when he's titled hero, I was like, oh, hero. The same volume, Rudy's a champion. And I know about this fight in the ravine in volume 25. So, okay, hero versus champion. All right. That's some nice setup, Refugin. But, yeah, and what's really cool about this is this ties into what I was saying earlier about the grave scene with Paul in volume 12 at the end, where Rudy's kind of acknowledges, no, I'm still a kid. The difference between him and Alec is Alec hasn't acknowledged his own
childishness.
He
right?
has this ideology, and it's so it's so backwards and it's so childish. It's just that's not a hero. And heroes, really, in a traditional sense, don't really exist. Life is a lot more complicated than that. It does things to people. It makes you a villain at the most well, I guess what I'm trying to say is you can be a villain at any one instance. That doesn't make you holistically a villain, but no one is a true hero. I guess is what I'm saying in the classical sense.
Right.
So it's just a backwards.
Sure.
It's the ideology of someone that hasn't experienced enough strife yet to understand these things, right? To understand that, because even right now he doesn't understand. He's the villain right now in this story, right? And he comes to finally, I guess, kind of understand that with his deference to Orsted by the end of it, right? But anyway, moving past it a little bit to analyze Alec here, but I love that, and I love that Rudius is the first step. The man who is acknowledged his childishness back in volume 12 is the one who shows him initially how far back he is compared to Rudius, because obviously he's stronger than Rudius, but he lacks something integral that Rudius has, right? And this even goes into fearlessness versus courage, right? Alec is fearless right now because he has every reason to be. He's part immortal. He's got the greatest fucking blade ever, and he's got the North God style techniques. He's got so much backing him up. Whereas Rudius, he's got the magic armor, but compared to the North God Kalman III with the King Dragon Blade, that's not much of anything. So he's the amount of courage he has to muster here. And in order to even induce it, he's got to think of his lovely wife, Eris, to give him the strength. And that's part of his strength, right? Other people. He has to think about Eris.
Even the fact that, Alec even notes how, Rudy just seems like... He doesn't seem like he'd be the type to win. And it's as Rudy, thinks... He's Rudy would run away from this, right? Because, I was just thinking about how, maybe he was thinking about it and I just didn't write it down in a way that reminded me exactly who said what or who came up with what. But, because, as we find out later, because Rudy's, because Rudy, he beats Alec and becomes one of the 7 powers, and he's talking about with Sandor, and it's because he's I only got this power because of the, the people I surrounded myself with, and Sandor's well, maybe that is your power, and, but here Rudy's fighting him alone, right? And, because Rudy...
But even while fighting him alone, right, the courage... That manifests a little bit thinking Rudius. Even the magic armor is a collaborative effort. It's not his effort. It's
that's what I was going to point out, because he basically mentions his tendency to back away from things, right? And he was thinking even now it might be the smarter thing to just back up and try again. But him pushing past that, because he has his friends to rely on, right? He has other people who he respects a lot. Even though when in some ways maybe it's not quite earned or not quite earned or deserved. I was just thinking about obviously with Roxy, it's he respects her as his master, but objectively speaking, he's a much better mage than her, right? He's much more powerful at least because he has much more mana and he has all these he has this other voiceless casting, he's stronger, but he still has all these respect for all these quote unquote weaker people, and because he can rely on them, he doesn't necessarily have to put in his all the time. Right, and which is why he might pull away from an encounter, which is what Alec reads on him. But and that but then it's here he can't do that. He is alone in fighting. He still has friends at his back, so to speak. But he is fighting 1-on-1 in this moment, and he does, like you said, think of Eris, and that gives him strength, and he is able to surpass the arrogant one. and do something that he hasn't done before, and also achieve a ranking in the 7 powers.
Again, because as Sandor says, it is his power, but it's so earned because that courage that he displays, that's what makes a hero in these moments. Like, even if it doesn't make logical sense, exactly why he's doing this, he knows if he doesn't do this, he's going to lose something, and that something is, his pride as Rudius Greyrat in this new world, trying to be someone else, someone independent of that loser that he used to be, that person that he doesn't want to identify with anymore. Like, he's here to prove something, that he can, be a new man in a new life as Rudius Greyrat, right? And that's what makes him a hero. That's what makes him one of the 7 great powers. Like, this is his tale of heroism. And what better way to signify, to bring it full circle by having his symbol on the tablet be the Migurd symbol, because the one who started him on this journey of improvement, the one who awakened him in his new life, where he truly got to live his new life, is none other than Roxy Migurdia. So, or now Roxy M. Greyrat, of course.
And to highlight one more aspect of the fight that we glossed over, I guess, is just like, because going back to Alec underestimating Rudy. Well, what does Rudy pull off during the fight that Alec can technically do with the sword, but Rudy does on his own that nobody else has done before that we know of, right? He does gravity magic. And that like is something that Alec just, because obviously it's like, well, this was, we saw this before with Oldius. Like he was able to use gravity magic as well. So we obviously know that Rudy has the potential for it, but he displays it here. He trips up Alec and is able to get the a decisive blow by doing something on his own merits that Alec was able to do with the sword that Alec can't do alone, and wouldn't have he misjudges Rudy very much so, and that's just another example of that.
One of his armors of fearlessness gets chinked at that point, right, where Rudius, he utilizes something through his courageous endeavor, and and chinks the armor, right? He fucking he beats Alec. And this is another cool thing about it, is like, because Alec doesn't learn his lesson immediately, right?
No.
Because what happens immediately after this? He gets more attribution. He gets more in his armory to make him even more fearless, which is the fighting god armor.
Yep.
So like, he only adds more and more things that make him more and more impervious, but ultimately makes him at his core weaker. And it takes him finally learning humility via a handily defeat by Orsted to actually finally awaken and go, I was never a hero.
Going back to him being shonen coded, that's an example in which he's like the opposite, so to speak, because a lot of shonen tend to have the opposite. It's basically the message of internal power is more important than external power. So Joseph's Bizarre Adventure, Jonathan finds power through Haman. Dio finds power. He uses a mask, right, to shed himself as humanity. What's an example that you would know? You kind of get him. In Bleach with Aizen and the Hogyoku, right? Like, he's using this other object's power, and when it rejects him, he's suddenly weaker, right? Dragon Ball, I know you haven't watched it, or read it, but there's some of the later antagonists who literally absorb power from other warriors rather than taking it, rather than from their own strength. And when they lose that power, it's they're weaker as a result. So you could probably think of some. Hody Jones with the drug in Fishman Island. You could probably think of some examples, but it's very common. So here you have Sandor understanding that lesson and giving up the King Dragon sword, where Alex still hasn't learned it. Like, if anything, his loss to Rudy makes him lean more into that the reason why he's the antagonist and why the guy fighting with the power of friendship, both Rudy and Orsted, is his enemy, right? They're the hero. So very good.
It's good shit. And then
I
love the rendezvous scene with Rudius, and then Eris, just like hearing that Rudius is now one of the 7 great powers, she's like acting as if it's also like her like accomplishment. She's like, yeah, hell yeah, like, that's my Rudius. So
Oh,
cute.
speaking
So
of that,
cute.
I was because shit, I forgot one of the comments mentioned how like the system of ranking the powers didn't necessarily exist, but there was still like god ranked people beforehand. Like
Oh
obviously
yeah, of course.
like
Yeah.
North God Rada isn't one of the 7 powers, but she's still a water god, right? So I was just thinking about how it's interesting that like Rudy he's just Quagmire Rudy. He's not Earth magic god or water magic god. He's just fucking Quagmire. So like I think that's the first and only of the 7 powers we know of to not be titled after a god, or the idea of a god, basically. So it's cool.
It is. It's an upset in the list for sure. And the ogre god is gonna. Oh, I guess we didn't really talk about like I mean, it's kind of glossed over, admittedly. Like Zanoba and Doga don't really stand up very well to the ogre god. The ogre god kind of overwhelms them. Yeah, but then Atofe and all that. So I guess we didn't talk about any of that shit. Yeah, we got to talk about that.
No. Well, because first we get just Sandor being a dork and like with him being like so nervous about meeting Ruijerd, and he's like, but he's my hero, and I want to hear his story. Very funny.
Yeah.
Atofe being fucking stupid. I love the little art with like Atofe and Sandor like and Norn is just like crying as they're like gushing over Ruijerd and or whatever, and it's just like or talking with Ruijerd. It's so funny.
And I just love how like Atofe, the only person she listens to is her son. Like,
oh, it's so good that her family is like, because they grew up with her, so of course they know how to manipulate her and understand her specific brand of stupidity. So
yeah, but I mean, even before that, like thinking of like kind of like simple-minded, kind of like cute stupidity is like the ogre god. As soon as Atofe comes in, she's like, we got you surrounded on your people surrounded on ogre land. Ogre god's immediately like, have to leave, must defend homeland. Like, goodbye. It's like, it's cute. It's cool. It's cool. It's funny.
Which by the way, we get the story of Ruijerd and stuff, and specifically the takeaway that I thought was interesting was getting a big insight into Perugius's motivation for wanting to defeat Laplace, because it's like, he failed Urupen, his one of his best friends, and the dragon god, fellow dragon folk. And so thus his quest to defeat Laplace and get vengeance basically is him dealing with the grief of having
trying to atone
loss.
Basically, because he blames himself since Urupen sacrificed himself to save Perugius from a lethal blow, right? So he blamed himself. So it's like it's kind of also like it's kind of atonement for his what he feels like is his mistake.
God, no, and thinking about the potential future story with like not only Perugius and this backstory of his, but also thinking about like, well, Orsted's on his side, but also inevitably has to betray and kill him, and it's like, fuck.
And this, because I want to say this leads me to an interpretation I've had for a little bit now, but I keep forgetting to mention. So Orsted said something very interesting in earlier volumes when Rudius was saying like, oh, what if I call myself like Epic Dragon something, right? Like because right on the dragon is kind of lacking, and Orsted's like, do not use the dragon moniker in your name, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I guess I'm not worthy of it. He's like, no, just dragon folk are like very like they're arrogant, they get they're simple minded when it comes to these quests that they're on. Like they're very robotic. Like you're more open-minded than they are, basically. And it was really interesting because this is true in terms of the Laplace's fascination and hatred with the man god. It's true with Perugius' quest. He's very hollow. He's very narrow focused on Laplace, but Orsted is the same. He is very, very one-track minded on his quest to beat the man god.
Because Orsted was forced on it. Orsted... Like, I mean, I don't think Orsted had the choice.
Okay, here's what I'm getting at. Okay,
go ahead.
Not only with Rudius does he become more open-minded, but even before that, I'm curious because Orsted gave a not really satisfying justification for his quest. He said, well, don't you hate the man god? Like, the man god, he's pretty hateable. But other than that, other than what he said, we know that the man god was responsible for killing the first dragon god, Orsted's father.
Well,
so it's like a revenge quest. But knowing what Orsted said, there's got to be more to it. I'm expecting we're going to get a crazy revelation.
Well, because I was just thinking about how, because my understanding was that like he's basically like he has to kill the man to deal with the man god, otherwise he will continue to reincarnate when he dies, right? So he like
that's true. That is true. Yeah.
So it's like so in a way, I was just thinking about that where it's like it could just be that, or it's less that Orsted is single-minded and more that he's sort of a slave to the single-mindedness of his people because he has to do this, right? Or else he can't.
True.
Pass on.
I'm an idiot. I didn't think about that's the most important aspect is that he's literally chained to the man god and his fate because of the reincarnation technique. Yeah.
So,
I guess. I mean,
maybe he does have his own single-mindedness, but from what we know right now, that's how I'm reading it. Where it's like if he dislikes that aspect of the dragon folk, it's because he's more burdened from it, and it would make even just like the way like I hadn't even thought about how it's like he has this disdain for the people who've put them in his people who've put them in the circumstance of eternal death and life, basically, like suffering, if you will. Very,
and that is suffering, as we get in the extra in the prologue 0. Like we get more, insight into
which that one I was gonna. I should have made that comparison. I was thinking of ReZero, and because obviously it's like these are all three of these, Subaru, Perugius, and the Blessed Child of Restoration are all like if they die they come back. But Orsted, like, we don't really see his suffering because his loops are very long. Like, if anything, his suffering is that, like, the waiting, right? And, like, oh boy, 200 years until I find out if this is the loop, if this is the one, where with Subaru and the Blessed Child of Restoration, their loops are shorter, and their deaths are sad and brutal, and it is still like it's very easy to see that as a form of suffering for Orsted, and even though we only get so much insight into him and how he sees this, because it's like he has to do it, so but it's still interesting to think about anyway, and
no, I agree with what you're saying.
To go to the ogre god a bit, I was just gonna obviously it's like, well, he values, like, Rudy spares him because, well, he just wants to protect his family, right? And that's something Rudy vibes with. So, of course, he's like, yeah, sure, we don't. Well, and I especially like the mutual, like, Atofe didn't kill any of the non-combatants of the ogre folk. And, Marta did not kill any of the non-combatants when he went to destroy their headquarters, right? Like, we saw poor, I wrote down her name, because I was like, I'm not like Rudy. I'm not going to freaking forget it. I ain't a piece of shit.
No,
and then I forgot the name because I didn't write it down. The elf lady. I forgot. I'm a piece of shit. Never mind. I take it back. Rudy. Sorry, Rudy. I'm just as bad. Fariastia. Wow. That's why I can't remember, because I can't even fucking say it.
So it's a complicated name.
So anyway.
Yeah. There's a alliance that's built there. It's good stuff.
Yep. And I guess another realization I had around this time, I was just thinking about how like Galfalion and Alec were both sort of trapped by their titles, or names in a sense. Where Gal, of course, he felt like he had to be the ideal sword god, and thus got kind of fucked up when he was no longer the sword god. Where Alec felt like he had to live up to he wanted to surpass the name Kalman. Basically, he wanted to make it his own and be the biggest hero. But in that same way, he was trapped by it. Which is actually, now I think about it again, more shonen comparisons. It's kind of similar to Ace, where it's like he hated Roger and he wanted to be Pirate King, right? Because he wanted to surpass Roger. But in that way, he was also ultimately being deferent to Roger and being trapped by that very same thing. So
True. Cool comparison. Yeah, good shit.
And anyway, then Geese and Body come out of the ocean like fucking Cthulhu.
They're just trying to enjoy the nice sea breeze. Rudius and Kalman II. They're just like, what a great time. He's like, hey Rudius, look, what the fuck is that? He's like, what is that? He's like, turn off your fucking demon eye, bro. What the fuck is that? What the fuck? Like, what the fuck indeed. And Sandor, he's got to take one for the team. He's got to fight this mano y mano. Unfortunately. Yeah. His him and his uncle. But we get some get a lot. The interlude right after this is very dense, very very dense. Honestly, I'm having a hard time finding where I want to start with this interlude because there's just so much information. And like first of all, we get the confirmation that we get also the detail of how it happened is Laplace basically fucking blew himself up and Bodigatti with it. Like he used a fucking some insane spell that literally destroyed the continent and created the Ringa Sea, which is fucking crazy. Like unlike anything we've seen in the story. We thought the fucking nuke Rudius created in volume 15 was crazy. That ain't nothing apparently. Jesus Christ.
Oh God. Well, actually, I do want to say a little bit before we get into that. I like when but Bodyguardy's talking to Rudy beforehand, and he's like, I got the armor, I delivered Ruijerd. You have nowhere to run. And so Abyssal Sword, King Vita, the Sword God, the North God, the Earth God, and I, with our powers combined, will defeat you. And it's like, Geese is like, hold on, you're talking too much. And it's like, I'm just laughing because it's like, they're a little late to the party. All these guys are done. And they know that too. Like, I'm pretty sure Geese mentioned like, oh, I know about your victory in the forest, but it's still, I don't know.
No, because even in this interlude, he's talking to the man god. The man god literally tells him, like, bro, you've taken too much time. Everyone is already, like, it's caboose. It's just you left. So yeah, so Bodigatti, I guess, just forgore.
Didn't get the memo. Or he just thought it was funny to say to. Well, again, it's Bodigatti. He could be acting the fool, right? Like in a way, in a way, you could maybe he's like congratulating Rudy for dealing with them by making this like foolish boast and setting him up to get like knocked down in a sense of with like because he also is strong enough that he could also like solve do it all himself anyway, and he damn near does, right? So but anyway,
or even more awkward, it could be a problem of Rifujin and the editors didn't notice, like whenever they added this chapter, like, now with that conversation, what Bodigatti here doesn't make any sense, but who cares?
Unfortunate, but I still like the exchange regardless of whether it's a mistake, because I don't think I thought about it retroactively, but I did. It's funny. It's funny in the moment, and I still think it's funny even if it's weird.
One thing I did want to note here on some of the conversations. The one conversation Geese has with Bodigatti, and by extension, the conversation Bodigatti has with Man God is because the difference between the competency of Bodigatti and Geese versus someone like Alec is very much at play here. And it could and it's also the problem of not getting to know their opponent. Alec, being who he is only locking his sights on one foe, whereas Bodigatti, based on his long life and his wisdom, he takes interest in even the much weaker people. Because fighting is not even ironically, despite his moniker, the fighting god, fighting is not actually his end all be all at all. It's living life, it's drinking, it's making merry, it's betting women, right? But
I love the line he has to Geese where it's like wasting time is what makes it so special, right? That's just a good line.
But yeah, Geese talking about how contextualizing a little bit more why he's on this endeavor in servitude of the man god, and saying like, I've always I've always been around people, but I've never corralled them like Rudius. I've never been able to indulge in that sort of strength that he has, because in all honesty, I am much more similar to Rudius than Rudius is to the great powers. I can see that because I'm on a similar wavelength. Rudius is lacking in so many regards, but I can see that he makes up for all of them by the people he surrounds. I wanted to try and make the most of my life by doing something similar. It's just such a cool moment of recognition and realization of what truly makes Rudius strong. The same thing Sandor was hinting at in their conversation, and how his literal opponent, literally the foil of Rudius in this case, in servitude of the man god, and he's in servitude of the dragon god. He acknowledges his opponent's power, and by extension, Rudius obviously acknowledges Geese's as well. And it's when he doesn't give it the credit it's due, and when he overshoots it, that he gets in a real pickle, like against the Golfali and Coleman
on the bridge, right?
Where he didn't think about the possibility of Geese's shrewdness in this operation, right? But yeah, no, that, and then by extension, Bodyguard either already having internalized this or just internalizing it truly there with Geese's words to him in his talk with the man god, and how the man god's like, this is what needs to happen, and then Bodyguardi's like, well, what if we entertain this possibility? He's like, what's the point of doing that? This needs to happen, Bodyguardi. And Bodyguardi's like, well, someone like Rudius entertains all these possibilities, and that's why he's where he's at, and that's why he's so strong. That's why he's fucking pissing you off so much, because that's part of his strength, is that he entertains all these possibilities. Maybe you should start. That's so cool.
Well, the bit about the man god not believing in what ifs when it comes to the past, I thought was really. I also thought was interesting because the man god can see the future, and he can manipulate it, right? But when it comes to the past, he doesn't care about what like thinking about things differently, because again, he has no little predictive ability, right? But because the past is an absolute, right? It hasn't changed. It was what it was. He can't do anything about it, thus he doesn't care about it. But that in itself, that lack of imagination and flexibility is a flaw of his, right? It's cool. And then let me make sure I'm reading this correctly. So this interlude opens with the words of don't mess with the what was it, a certain saying began to spread. There are three people in the world you must not make enemies of: the demon god, the dragon god, and the fighting god. And of course, we kind of heard that from Perugius, right? Where don't make an enemy of Orsted, Bodyguardi, or Laplace, which is functionally what he was saying.
Well, I actually do remember that conversation. It is a little bit different, because Perugius actually says the Technique god, the Dragon God, and the Fighting God.
He did. You're right, because I said Demon God, and I realized wait a minute, that wasn't correct. I was just quoting it from what I was reading off of this interlude. So let me make, because Perugius was spreading the words, and it was apparently spread by Kalman. Which of course that would make sense why Perugius would have taken it, because he says the North God Kalman especially took a liking to that phrase and repeated it, and so it makes sense that Perugius would quote it because he fought alongside Kalman, right? So he would have respected his ally. But I guess what the man god said is don't mess with the demon god, because he's a greater threat does exist, right? So that's what he told Bodyguardi. But Bodyguardi, because it sounds like that phrase, someone told Bodyguardi that to not deal with these three guys, and then Kalman repeated it, and then it just kind of got warped and transformed around, basically on
around Perugius the great powers.
Right, yeah. And Perugius saying giving a different third god for examples. So I was just wondering, who would have been the person to tell it to, or because hold on, let me Oh wait, hold on.
Isn't this from the perspective of Bodyguardi?
Oh yeah, no, that's right. It was his Bodyguardi's father was. Never mind, I forgot about the part about his father. Okay, so his father said there was one person you must not make an enemy of, and then and then eventually
that one person would probably be Laplace, demonic dragon god Laplace, I would imagine.
Okay, yeah. If not him, then the man god.
True. That's a good point. But I'm thinking because of the connection to Bodyguardi, it's probably
Laplace makes more sense. Yeah.
Because he literally fights Laplace and loses a lot because of it.
True, right. Because even at the end of the story, him working with the man god doesn't really bite him. So and that so it doesn't. It's not that he's without some form of punishment, but it's he doesn't lose. That's which is important to him. So But anyway, okay. I just want to make sure I just misread because I didn't pay enough attention to the father part, so I was confused about things. Okay, now I'm clear. But yeah, what else was in that? Oh fuck! This is where I had an interesting point that I wanted to share. Okay, so I read I think I read the interludes, and then I went to go make dinner, and I was realizing stuff while making dinner. So the way Body Guy describes, he fights Lapis, the world blows up, and he wakes up like centuries later, and he describes it as a different world. He also has a new outlook on life.
Yes, that part of the conversation. How do I not remember this? Oh my god.
Well, because what I realized is like, oh, that's an interesting contrast to Rudy, right? In a sense, like he dies and he comes into a new world and decides to take on a new outlook on life, right? And I just was like, oh, that's an interesting way to think of this, because obviously it's literally the same world, but you know, he sees it as a different world because of how like different it is after centuries. Like the nations are different. The geography is different. Like there's just a new ocean, right? A new sea. But I was just thinking about that and like drawing a parallel between him and Rudy, where it's like in Bodyguardi's previous life, so to speak, he took everything very seriously and trained really hard. And in his second life, he focused on living and enjoying life. Where Rudy, in his previous life, he kind of did neither. Like he wasn't enjoying and living his life, and he wasn't taking anything seriously. And in this life, he's doing more of both, right? Like you mentioned that older thing, him swinging the sword when Bodyguard being like, "Why do you do this?" Right? Like, why are you not enjoying your life? And it's like, well, he is doing that. He's just not in that moment. And like here he is also being serious. So I was just thinking about that and drawing that parallel from them between them through this framework that I just happened to think of, like, oh, the idea of like Bodyguard sort of reincarnating it in a more not symbolic sense rather than a literal sense, like Rudy.
Because this is so long. I'm glad you mentioned that scene, because this sequence, the conversation with him and Geese illuminates a little bit something more about that scene with him and Rudius. And that is what Geese says. Geese says, well, I don't know about that, because even with me, I'll go back to a town that I frequented, 10 years later. And to me, it's like, sure, there's a lot that hasn't changed, but there's plenty enough that makes me look inward and ask myself, well, have I changed? What have I done? Am I the same old person? And if I haven't, it makes me feel a certain type of way. And that is strictly because his time is finite. Bodyguardi's is not. Not right. Necessarily, anyway. And that creates... So the only opportunity Bodyguardi had to experience something like Geese or Rudius is when he had his one revival. It was only truly one, because his actual perspective changed as well via Kishrika.
Yes.
And... but now, everything changes around him, but him, Bodyguardi, inwardly... He's changed one time, but he hasn't for centuries, for thousands of years, right? Because that transition was almost 4,000 years ago. And I find it really interesting, because going back to that conversation where Bodyguardi is like, well, why do you do this? Well, it's because Rudius's time is so finite. He's got to try his utmost to get the life that he truly wants, to not have any regrets like last time, right? Bodyguardi, of course, he can't conceptualize that, because he's completely different in constitution. His constitution is, well, it's not necessarily finite, and that creates a completely different outlook on life, right? I love that conversation. How Geese, how he pushes back on that, given that he's immortal.
Yeah, no, that's it, like I can see, like, obviously, like, we have the extra chapters to give, especially more to Bodyguardi, but more to both. But like that chapter is just really good on its own. And so, and also I would imagine in the web novel, really important for framing Bodyguardi in the absence of that other extra chapter. So, yes. It's very good.
And then we get another
interlude,
great interlude, where we get the story of how North God Kalman II became a true hero by passing on his tutelage to others. And how I love like the quote where it's like, it didn't sound as grandiose being called, master, but it made me feel something so much more than when I was called a hero. I thought that was so cool. Like how he's like, I am far more content being a master. Oh, and then obviously some of his goofy flair is added in, where it's like, and it's not so bad being called master. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I love that, how because he acknowledged the weakness in his heroic endeavors. And it's such a cool contrast.
Wait, real quick, what chapter is this called?
I wanted to be a hero.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, okay, because okay,
Am I misremembering?
No, I'm just remembering the parts that were from Alex's perspective. Because he talks about.
I'm so sorry. Say that again.
No, Alex's perspective, not Sandor, because he talks about like losing, or losing to Rudy and stuff.
Oh, am I skipping ahead? Is this volume 26?
I think so, because I know that sounds familiar, but that's not what, because this chapter, this was I Want to Be Here. This was Alex's sort of perspective on like growing up hearing about his father and grandfather.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting it mixed up. I'm talking about volume 26, chapter 1 stuff. Okay, yeah, I'm getting mixed up. My bad.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Backing up.
I was so confused. I was like, there's no way that you read that chapter and thought it was from Sandor's perspective. I was like, what's wrong? So okay, no, that makes sense. You just jumped ahead a little bit. Yeah, I mean that's I don't have a whole lot to talk about with this chapter. About you. But that's one observation that, because like I think the way that they described Kalman in this chapter was the first was how like a little cowardly but able to have resolve when it counts, and it's like, oh, like Rudy. Yeah, if they didn't say that directly, I thought that. And then well, obviously, like in the moment of reading this, I thought he died because it's like and his regret of like he should have given it his all, because he didn't give it his all because he thought he had to fight Orsted after, and then it's like, oh no, he's dead, and then now it's like, oh well, I didn't think about this chapter with the context of being alive because I didn't know he was going to be alive.
Yeah, and I was going to say, because you mean this reminds me of back in volume 16 when I said this exact same thing about how I think his name's King Gaunus of Asura.
Yes,
sounded very similar to Rudius too. Same with Lord God Colin the First. Perhaps Perugius has a thing for Rudius-like men. Maybe that's perhaps the actual reason why Perugius is so friendly with Rudius, is because Rudius reminds him of these two close confidants that he admired.
Yeah, because like honestly, when you describe, say, "Oh, so friendly with Rudius," a part of me goes, "Really?" But then it's like, no, he did give a lot of like exceptions to Rudius, right? Where it's like the talk about like, oh, what if Sieg turns out to be Lapis, or allowing Roxion do Chaos Breaker as a demon, right? So yeah.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of,
Alec is...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, keep going.
No, let's finish it. No, I was done with this chapter, but go ahead and finish your thoughts on this chapter.
Yeah, all I was going to say is, Alec only has step 1 of the equation down. Put your all into it, but where it's directed is important. Where you're going is important, right? So whereas Alec is going to be more headstrong, he's going to be stronger for it. He's not even close to what Rudius was when he defeated him. So it's that is to come. Volume 26.
But anyway, I remembered a while ago there was something I realized while editing. I think from the last discussion that I forgot about just a little thing about Nanahoshi's decision to go into the future. Basically, I was just thinking about how when Rudy first met her, like she wouldn't have hesitated at all to do that. Basically, if she needed to, because she had no real attachment to the world. But then at this moment like in volume 23, when she does it, she does so at a time when she has more friends in the world, right? Like she's friends with Rudy, Sylphia, and Zanaba, and but she still decides to sort of like go into the future, even though now she's losing things in the present, so to speak. And I just was thinking about how like that's just interesting to have it happen at a time when it was a more difficult choice to her. Instead of when it was easier. So just, I don't know, neat characters thing I thought about that I didn't mention last time because I forgot. So yeah.
For sure. Super dope.
Yeah. Anyway, now you can talk about the Master Sandor stuff because now that I'm...
I already said the majority of
that's
it,
That's true. Okay.
I don't even know what I was talking about now.
Him liking Master as a title better than Hero.
Just because. Oh man, I was segueing that into a really cool point, but now I don't have it.
Oh fuck. Let's see.
You start talking about it, and I'll think.
Yeah. So just let's see. So he resulted in the conflict zone by, I think he overcame a corrupt country or something like that, but the result, or he did some hero shit, but the result was chaos in a region that has been going on for decades. So, not exactly very heroic feeling. And also just like that, the fact that he was a lot like Alec when he was younger, but and that's the person that Alec was idealizing, as we saw in the interlude previously, but not, and like he was idolizing not the Sandor that he grew into.
Yes.
And then,
okay. Yeah. And then this. Thank you for saying this, because this reminded me of exactly what I was.
That's what
I
was hoping for.
So there's a clear dichotomy between how the world views Northgod Kalman II and how Northgod Kalman II views himself. And I think the answer and what the true, whether he was a true hero or not, is in, well, who's trying to follow in his footsteps? Little Alec, Northgod Kalman III. Mm-hmm. Where does that lead him? Into becoming the villain. Right? In many stories, that is independent of the legendary, almost fictitious tellings, to the people that were actually, caught in the crossfire of his heroic deeds. What he did politically was a travesty. Northgod II single-handedly created the conflict zone.
Yeah.
Right? Is that heroic? No.
Mm-hmm.
He paid no heed like Rudius does. Rudius thinks about these things. He agonizes over them. Always, 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 always thinking about what ifs, as Badigadi said. And because of that, he usually ends up doing what's right for the people. What's mm-hmm. right for the superb people. What's right for, the King Dragon realm. What's right for Asura. Putting Ariel there is great for them in many ways, because even in the future now they're not going to be led to destruction because of their influx of magical weaponry. All of this stuff is because Rudius goes on, not trying to be a hero, but because he doesn't want to mess up again. It's that simple. But because of that, he is acting, in a sense, as a true hero. Northgod Kalman II didn't have any of that delicacy mm-hmm. In his endeavors. And because of that, there was a lot of people caught in his heroic crossfire. And to some, he might have even looked like a villain, had they known it was because of some of his antics that caused this. And when he, and it's so symbolic. I love the symbolism here. He literally passes on that to his son. He literally passes it on, because that sword is what brought about sort of that killer confidence in him. Mm-hmm. That sort of killed his drive to be Northgod Kalman II, the hero, Northgod Kalman II. And in a way, symbolically, by literally passing on the King Dragonblade, he passes on that plight, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And Alex sort of proves that, before this, he wasn't a hero. But now look at him now. Now he's getting his chance, right now, fighting 1v1 with the fighting god, to be part of this heroic tale on the side of the heroes, right? Mm. It's so fucking cool, man. Like, what a great way to start the final volume. And in a very, like, if you were to imagine, like, if you were maybe in volume 23 imagining the finale of this stuff, who would have thought that at the beginning of it we're going to get this great fucking characterization for Northgod Kalman the fucking second, not even the third, but the second, against fighting god Badigadi. Like, dude, it is this is the shit. This is why I love Mushoku Tensei. Right here.
It's like it's good shit.
But yeah, that was where I was leading into the Northgod Kalman II stuff. Is amazing.
Also, I wrote this down,
and by extension, Alec.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
I wrote this down. I imagine it's something that they more or less say, but I was just thinking about how, like, Sandor, he had a strong weapon, so he put it down to try and become a strong person. But now he's fighting Badigadi, and he's just a strong person with a strong, weapon in the form of the fighting god armor. And it's like, oh, the best of both worlds, great. Unfortunate.
But that scene when he picks up Atofei's sword, he's like, I haven't used this line in a while. And my right hand a sword, and my left hand a sword. It's like, I will fell 100 million enemies. It's like, oh man, it's so sick. It's so sick.
Yes.
Holy shit. I need to pull up the line. It is so sick. I love it. But yeah, good way to start off the Zenavel.
Yes.
And what was I? What did I want to point out next for this first chapter?
There's some stuff with Orsted after when Rudy gets back to base. But if there's stuff before that, then go for it.
Oh, when they're initially running away and they're still on Ogre Island, like I love how they're all looking to Rudius, but he's panicking, and it's like Eris that kind of calms him down. I love that little scene where it's like Rudius has to I don't know. It's cool. I like it. There's not much else to say other than that. But then obviously, yeah, they go back to the Superb village, and there's not much else to say there other than Sandor shit. So.
Yeah, well, and I like, Orsted just noting that he doesn't want Rudy to die, which I just, like, obviously considering how they, met, Orsted trying to kill Rudy, and then the second time they met, where Orsted had a very good reason to kill Rudy, but obviously it's like, well, then that turned into wanting to keep him alive, and now it's like really just like, yeah, and he as we see, he really does think of Rudy as a friend, and it's just like, yeah, Orsted's just a sweet man with a very, very scary face.
True.
Yeah. But anyway, then we get the fight proper against Body Gotti, and I just one of those details I thought was neat was Rudy using, like, because obviously he can't see Body Gotti with his special eyes, so he predicts him just normally without using his eyes, which I thought was just interesting, because obviously, like, again, comparing that to the Man God, where the Man God, like, I even kind of like speculated where it's like, oh, maybe the Man God has something like the Eye of Future Sight, where he could just see, on a godly level, right, where he could just see all all possible futures, which, isn't literal, like, he doesn't literally have demon eyes, but he does have that basic ability, but as a result, because he was so reliant on that power, he can't predict things, and so here we have Rudy, who is able to still predict things even without that power that he's been granted, right? So he's not defined by the things that make up his abilities and powers, because, and just like he has all these, friends who've been strengthening him in various ways, and but he's still at him, so yeah, that's cool.
Indeed. I forgot to mention the initial battle still on Ogre Island.
Go ahead.
Where they do recoup with Sandor, and for a while, like, just that not only exemplifying Rudius's might as a magician, but also Body Gotti for being able to tank all of it, and Geese's preparedness for literally tanking full voltage power electric, and still being able to stand. But it's just, I love the successive insane magical feats that are in display here. How he's like literally, like, it's described, he just keeps pouring mana into the Saint tier spell, the rainy spell that he uses when he's literally like 5 years old to become a water saint. But he just keeps pouring mana into it. There's like tornadoes and shit. It's like, holy shit. And how like him and Cliff are like combining like spells and shit. Like, it's just so much shit is going on. It's like, it's just really cool to read. It's just a sick set piece. I could my imagination was going wild with like how crazy it was looking. Yeah, I love that. I love the description there. And like, again, it just shows, leave Rudius a few miles off, bro. He can fucking wipe out an entire army by himself, 100%.
For sure.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah. But yet still, top 3 great power, nothing to the top 3 great power, right?
Nope.
Takes it all.
Yeah.
Crazy. Anyway, that's all I gotta say there. Nothing.
I did the way it's just so like grueling, and it feels just so like the further up, like as it's like a perpetual motion machine, right? Like it's a magic armor draining power from something that is a eternal battery of a mortal demon, right? So it just feels like hopeless, but then that just makes it all the better when you get reinforcements arriving. Where I recognized that pair of panties, and it's fucking,
oh my god,
like Sylphie just coming in as like the best healer. Holy shit!
I cannot believe, with all of this insane finale shit going on, in the middle of it we get Isolde's canon panty color confirmed.
Oh yeah, that's
like
right.
She wears the panties to match her hair color. Like it's like,
it's
okay,
so dumb.
Thanks for that information. I appreciate it. That's kind of sexy. Thank you.
That's so dumb. On. It's great.
I sold a sexy woman. It does something to me while I'm reading, but we'll keep moving on. This is an epic battle that's going on. And bro, like the fact, like she's deflecting the fucking fighting god bodyguard's blows. Like, goddamn, water emperor, fucking ice sold over here. Okay, sheesh. And Ghislaine doing shit like fucking bodyguard can't hit her. Hell yeah, that's my queen right there.
Yes.
Go.
And then of course we get the trump card, Magic Armor version 0, which what did they say about that I thought was a little
I should have mentioned earlier, by the way.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I should have mentioned earlier, by the way. Bodyguard goes, Rudius Grey Rat, I challenge you. I think this is still an Ogre. I challenge you to 1-on-1 duel. And Rudius just goes, no thanks. That shit's funny. Yeah, what were you going to say?
I'm trying to find it still because I just... oh, no, wow, I didn't... oh, okay. Maybe I misread it. Never mind. Something about, like... So the Magic Armor version 0, that was the one he was working on for fucking years, right? Like, trying to make a better version?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Because Body said something about autofay, so I thought that I was just like, that's weird. Or that
this project was, I don't think, really that the one that had been mentioned for a long time is actually the version 3, which we don't even get to see in story. We get to see it only in the biography, where he's talking about how the version 2 was kind of like a prototype for the version 3, where it's like it is less mana costly and it's more lightweight, but it's not as powerful, but they still want to make it more powerful and still be lightweight, and that's what the version 3 becomes, basically.
Okay.
Whereas the version 0 is kind of like, I don't think it's ever mentioned. It's just kind of been in the background, basically, and now it's kind of revealed that, they've been doing this for a while, and Roxy's doing the final touches and trying to teleport it, basically. Or digging it out. That's most of the time I think it takes, right? That she had to dig it out.
Or because, hold on. It was, no, I think Bodyguard says something when he sees it, oh, wow. Oh, it was in that chapter. That must be the magic armor that my dear sister bestowed upon the dragon god in recognition of his worth. So, so if that's true, then that means Autofay had the armor and she gave it to Orsted or something. Which I just thought was weird because I felt like it just came out of nowhere. And I don't remember it being mentioned before.
Say that line one more time.
So I'm going to read it if you want to control F it. It's in chapter 3, the 5th turning point, but it's like, the fighting guard
this sounds familiar, though.
Yeah, the fighting god armor was about 2.5 meters tall. The magic armor was about 3 meters tall. And then after that paragraph, Bodyguard says, that must be the magic armor that my dear sister bestowed upon the dragon god in recognition of his worth, is what he says. So as version 0, I guess it would make sense that it's like it's a piece of armor that predates any of Rudy's actual magic armors. But again, I just thought it was weird because it kind of, I don't remember it being mentioned or alluded to before, aside from Rudy having a trump card in this volume.
No, it's not. I wonder if that's either a translation thing, because maybe that's in reference to Rudius handily defeating Atofe in version 1, or if that's... But no, that's a little bit too much misconstruence.
Well, because she did have... this one, what I definitely think was mistranslation was back in that volume when Atofe saw the magic armor, she said magic armors plural, and I thought that was weird. But at the time, because I would as to my knowledge at the time, the only magic armor that should have existed would have been the fighting god armor. And because Rudy making the magic armor just intuitively from understanding, we could just do this with magic runes, and then the man god gave him advice where it's like, do this and this because that'll be more like the fighting god armor, so it'll be better and more effective, and that advancing their then Atofe had that.
Whenever he sees it in volume 15 is like, and I'm impressed by your imitation of the fighting god armor.
Right, so when Atofe said magic armors plural, when she saw it, I just assumed that was a mistranslation because of how plural in Japanese works, where it's just, you just generally assume based on context, like the word neko can mean cat or cats, depending on, like there are ways to be sure if you're implying multiple people, but generally you just figure it out. So I just assumed that like she said magic armor and the translator decided to interpret that as plural. But now I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, but apparently not. If this genuinely does come from Atofei's camp, then, but that's such a weird.
Yeah, that's kind of
how that would not be hinted about. Well, I guess that would be the hint, right? Like that right there would have been the hint, but it's
I guess so.
It's so tiny compared to like how important this is. Given
that's kind of why because I do like I like the final fight overall because again like the scale of it is cool, but as far and Bodyguardi and is just an interesting character. But as far as like that aspect of the fight itself, it definitely felt a bit like underwhelming compared to like Rudy versus Alec or Eris versus Gaul, you know. So just cause I was wondering if you had any further insights, but you're clearly as confused as I am. So
well, now I'm confused because I think I glanced over that and just because I was so into it, I chalked it up that like something's amiss here, like mistranslation, whatever. I think is referencing loosely the fight he had with Atofei or something. And, but now that you're actually reading it, I'm like genuinely thinking, I was like, no, that can't, because that's too much. That's too many errors. Like, there's no way that came about off errors alone. Like, this has to be something that Rifujin kind of ham-fisted in. Honestly, dare I say, ass pulled in, because while he did hint it, there's not near enough setup to justify giving this in the final fucking fight. It is kind of weird.
Yeah, no.
I wonder if some of the comments can elucidate something that we might have been forgetting or missing.
Yeah, please, because I definitely don't want to call Rifujin a hack. But this is, I mean,
I love his story.
No, and that's at the end of the day, it's not like what actually wins the fight is a King Dragon sword, which was very well established, right? Because Eris and Rudy together, used that to crush Bodyguardi down. So it's like ultimately the magic armor isn't it's an important leg up in the fight, but it's not the deciding factor. So even if it is a quote unquote ass pull, it's not the end of the world, right? So but it is still weird because I was just like, because in my head I'm like, this is the armor they've been working on the whole time. They're calling it version 0 because they're Chuny dweebs, I guess. But then Body said that line. It's like, well, now I don't fucking know, and I was just very confused because
there must be something else here, because the man god should have known about it. So obviously he's modeling it after the version 0. He should have just said it's like the magic, it's like this. But no, he says the fighting god armor.
Yeah. Because again, Rifujin isn't completely unknown to retroactively the behemoth. Like, oh no one's ever killed a behemoth. Next volume, oh look at the city built in the body of a dead behemoth, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's not like it's never happened, but it's still weird, So when it does happen, because it is pretty rare. It is pretty like normally I feel like with learning new information about stuff, it just feels like there's just like a whole continent got wiped off the map, right? Like, of course there's going to be information that only like certain characters know, like that's normal, right? But this is like, these are the characters who should know these things, and I don't know, it just, it wasn't brought up before, so okay, unfortunate. We'll hopefully we'll have one more discussion to go. Maybe there'll be something about the magic armor there. Maybe someone in the comments will have some elucidating information to help ground it for us, because other than that, it is just kind of like, oh, that happened.
We're stupid.
Did somebody say Atofei ex machina with the, because she's already stretching a little bit with the magic box of the literal mystery box. But I was fine, that was fine. But now I'm putting it all together. It's like little iffy there, but it's fine. No, I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say about the rest of the fight against Body.
I have something to say.
Gotcha.
Oh boy, do I have something to say. Not only is it intense, Rudy is fucking going in, fucking chopping off the arms, fucking shotgunning them, fucking sealing, all that shit's cool. Cliff being relevant in this fight with the fucking barriers, all that cool shit. The intensity, how he's like, Bodyguardi, fucking the cool visualization I had where Bodyguardi is like, oh, 4 remaining arms, let's just combine him into this slit in the fucking armor and like make two mega arms basically, and he gets one off, but one of the mega arms slams him right in the fucking armor, kind of making it useless. But Eris comes in And it's so beautiful because I immediately, she hits him in the side, and I immediately think of Volume 15, how everyone is awaiting Rudius to be the victor. But Eris is like, no, you let him go against the Dragon God alone, I'm going. And right as Rudius is about to get fucking slayed, who comes in? Saves Eris.
Well, the one who can fight at his side, the one who can stand in front of Rudy.
Yeah.
Well, of course, and then of course, like that's
Eris.
Following because, like, you know, Sylphie's the support. She comes in to heal, right? Roxy brings in the armor. She understands the circles the best, so she's able to, you know, use that knowledge. So it's like, you know, this is a victory born by all of Rudy's. You know what? That's probably what the purpose of the magic armor is, right? Where even if it's kind of an ass pull, it's like there to give Roxy like an important role in this fight as the, you know, the one who the only one who could do that. So yeah, that I should have thought about that more. But so yeah, there it is.
It's also blue, just like her.
Yay!
No, but like, and how in the Volume 15, Eris takes over the fight and you know, puts up a fight against Orsted. And here Eris, oh my god. She not only takes off one of his arms and breaks her fucking beloved sword by doing that, but then the fucking, oh my god, Eris, the King Dragonblade, pours in his masturbating fucking mana and Sword of Light fucking into fucking, with all the mana, her mana and Rudius's combined. Fucking Sword of Light, or at least I envision she uses a long Sword of Light. Okay, like it's just the visualization's cool to me. How it's like a blur. It's like this huge blade, but all of a sudden you can't see the blade.
That combo could be really interesting because gravity brings to mind to me a black hole, but light can't escape a black hole. So I don't know. There's like interesting of like light sword plus gravity blade is just that's an interesting combination attack, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I just envision her slamming down at like max velocity, so Sword of Light, and then boom, and then But then like the vision, like it condensing and like it just kind of like breaking him down, like on like a molecular. I envision like a molecular. Like I honestly kind of envisioned the what happens to Kakuzu when Naruto uses his Rasen Shuriken on him. That's like kind of what I was thinking. Like all these fucking blasts just fucking destroying him basically. And then you know he gets eviscerated, and it's fucking cool, and it's so precious. It's like, oh, Rudius, your hair's white. He's like, oh, yours is a little bit too. Oh, then we're the same, and she passes out. That's so precious. It's so precious.
It's so cute.
Oh no, but no, like I love that this is how the fight ends. That it's a fucking 1-to-1 parallel, basically, of Volume 15. And Eris, you know, fulfilling her role in the family.
Also, I didn't notice it before because I didn't look for it, but in the artwork for the volume, because I did notice Rudy's hair was white, because like of course it was like he had a tough fight, but I did notice Eris does have a white lock of hair there, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
It's a cool detail. Yeah. I noticed that as well.
And a very good blush. I forgot to mention earlier, by the way. The red went from her hair to her face.
Exactly. So cute. So cute. I did forget to mention earlier. I should have mentioned this earlier, but the fact that Eris actually gets a few rounds on Sandor in the last volume, when they're scuffling, is just a testament to Eris's might and the fact that she defeats the Sword God,
the former
Sword God.
Yeah, and then
the former Sword God
fights the North God on pretty even. Like it's like what 2-to-1, like she's able to get one or.
Well, essentially, the more she learned from, like, I guess what I gather from, the more she learned, the more rounds she was learning very quickly and then gaining rounds on him as if she was already getting stronger.
Yes,
and, we see. We see the result of this at the end where she is the one that deals the final blow, like she blindsides Badigati and then just fucking hammers down on him with the key, with the North God King Dragonblade. It's fucking, it's sick. Eris is strong and sexy and best girl, and second best character in Mushoku Tensei. That's what I gotta say. That's right, folks. Remember when I used to say at the beginning of this reading, it goes Rudius, Paul, than Eris. I think it's changed. I think
Oh,
it's
well,
Rudy's
yeah,
Eris
no,
than
that's
Paul.
fair, because, like, Paul gets, like, Paul has volume... I mean, in Volume 24, it's technically not even Paul. It's more like Rudy's ideal of Paul, but it's still... It evokes enough of Paul that I think it's, like, fair. But, but yeah, Eris gets so much stuff. Yeah, she gets some really cool stuff in these last few volumes, so, yeah, that's completely fair. And just in general, like, yeah, I think going back, I'm very curious about the stories and stuff we're going to read next time, because, like... again, I was just thinking about how, like, I want to see all those, like, again, like that Lucy Norn chapter was so fucking good, and I want to see all this other stuff with these other characters, where I feel like Eris, kind of, takes over in a sense, because she, this part of the story is about Rudy fighting, and Eris is the fighter. Right?
That's crazy. I thought the same thing in these volumes. I was like, man, Eris is really getting a lot more than
but
Sylphie
it just
and
makes
Roxy.
so much sense because of her role in the family dynamic and in the story that, of course, yeah, she's going to be on the front lines getting this, like, awesome fight with Galfalion and, fighting against Bodygotti and having these cool moments where, Sylphie had Sylphie and Roxy did have good moments, and, like, I hadn't really particularly Roxy, I hadn't quite appreciated her importance to the fight in a sense. But, like, as far as, like, character moments, it's, like, not as much, right? Like, compared to Eris,
Of course.
So, but hopefully those extra chapters will give us more. And, of course, in lieu of that, there is, I might read it eventually, just because I'm always looking for things to read on my phone at work, because it's one of the few things I can do at work during break and stuff, so maybe I'll read the Roxy Get Serious manga at some point.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah.
Not to discuss it, obviously, just to read it because it's, I don't know, more Roxy, more cute Roxy. Why not? So,
yeah.
and
I can't hate on that.
And we got an interesting comment about a while ago that framed it in a really neat way, and why Roxy is the best girl. So it's like, but yeah, I'll appreciate this character more. Let's go. Anyway, so moving on from the Bodygotti fight?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so then we get to Geese and his end, where oh yeah, that's right, because there was a whole bit with the defensive wall around the village, and Rudy's like war of attrition, basically just trying to keep Bodygotti out for as long as possible, and
working for several days, like the wall with the guerrilla tactics, like literally keeping a mist where you can't see in front of you in the forest. He's getting turned around.
Yes,
Geese can't even navigate it. Basically, yeah, it's cool shit. The fake out, it's just I hit him, and then he just finally gets up and talks about Bodygotti. He's like, shit, he didn't fall for it.
Oh, that's right. That was so good. Fucking like the trap there, and of course the ultimate conclusion where Rudy burns the forest with fire magic, and Geese didn't plan for that one.
That little action that you kind of like, it's just so insignificant you can almost forget about it.
Oh fuck!
Like, he did use fire spell, and Geese got caught up in it.
Well, and I just realized, because remember that the Bodygotti conversation you bring up, with Bodygotti saying, like, why do you spend so much effort learning all these things in these areas that you're not as strong in? Well, being more well-rounded was what allowed him to kill Geese and kept this important pawn of the man god. Because, like, let's say Rudy didn't learn fire magic as strongly, and he didn't create as big a fire, and Geese got away. The man god still has his most important pawn, right? Like, because which I'm really glad as to where it ended up with the man god in regards to, like, the future of the series, so to speak. But I was gonna say, it's like, yeah, like that could have just, like, Rudy being more well-rounded and increasing his areas in these places that he's weaker in. Yeah, it took care of Geese, and of course then we get the Geese, really going into the Geese contrast, where, like, Rudy recognizing that, like, Geese was weak, right? Like, he was kind of like Rudy in his past life. Like, he just didn't have the capability to sort of live in this world as someone strong. But unlike him, Geese didn't, like, run away from that, and he found a way to work in this world and live. And, and he was very good at it, right? And, just, again, like, I just love how Geese and Bodygotti are the antagonists, but they're just so, like, cordial, and they have such mutual respect for their enemies, right? Like, Rudy for them and them to Rudy, and it's just like, I don't know, they just have a really cool dynamic, I think, and it was just Geese and Bodygotti with each other, as, like, in the interlude chapter of them having conversations, like the really interesting conversations with each other, like, they're just good antagonists. So yeah.
No, that conversation Rudius has with Geese, like, no, Geese, you're wrong. But he can't explain why he feels Geese is wrong in his assessment of, like, who Rudius is, because Rudius is so much more than what he's exemplifying here. What he's not able to exemplify is the story even before this story began, which is his previous life, and how just the perspective Rudius has of like how Geese is in a much worse predicament than he was even in his previous life, in a world like where strength means so much, and Geese has none of it. And how, despite that, Geese has done very, very well from Rudius's vantage, and that's another reason why Rudius can only really give him respect at his end, despite being such a evil pest. He's his adversary in this. But and just it's such a poignant. It's so good. It's such there's not much more I can say about it. I wish I did have a thought much earlier when I was thinking about the stuff to talk about in volume 26. I hope I can maybe conjure it up shortly. I'm trying to think. I did have a cool thought, but it's not coming to me right now, unfortunately. So, do you have anything you want to say about this?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, it's good, but yeah.
I mean. It's just like the Geese is like, he wants to at least know he went down, and he was a strong opponent, and then Rudius giving him that respect, that credit, and then the sort of visualization of him drinking with Paul and Ghislaine in the afterlife and stuff. Man, it's like, man. This is actually peak. This is so peak.
But anyway, the fuckface brat Alec is still alive.
Hey.
Which I didn't see that one coming. But so last time, maybe it was last podcast, maybe it was just last time we talked. But I think it was during the podcast. But you mentioned having a certain piece of art as your background. Is it the volume 26 spread with like Geese and Bodigatti and everybody, or is it a different one?
Yeah, hell fucking yeah.
I was going to say, because
illustration.
I thought it was cool. But then what really got me, especially when I looked at it again, was I love how in the middle you have the man god, and he's pissed off, right? Because everyone he's been trying to rely on has failed him, and he's just angry and like so petulant. Like he's such a child, right? Like again, I'm comparing him to I will say that I did read the Ronan's comment about the spoiler thing, because I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna read this. But it's not really totally related to what I'm gonna say, but it's enough that someone might make an association. But just like the way that the man god is like, he's a petulant. Like again, I think of like Rudy tantruming as a hikikomori, right? Like whenever his parents bring up money, he just start hitting the ground, and and just the way that when we said, I didn't mention it, but when the man god talks to Rudy in the beginning of volume 25, and he's like, just die, just fucking die. Like he's just like, he has no like he's not like cocky and gloating. He's just like just being just really shitty. I was just thinking, so him being angry there when his allies are failing them, and then on the other side you have Orsted, and he's fucking smiling. He's fucking smiling. Let's go. Because which that hits different after what happens when he runs into Alec. It's like, because like Rudy's been trying so hard to make sure that Orsted doesn't waste his precious mana. And so then Orsted,
Orsted, it would be much worse if he let Rudius die here. The current Rudius, the one that he's formed a kinship with, the one that's allowed him to form finally his first kinships with other people.
Yes. I wish to see what it's like to fight alongside trusted friends, and it's like, let's fucking go.
Oh my god! Oh my god, Orsted, go out there, man! Holy shit! Oh my god, the little like in the even before he says that, the mention of like his slight smile before he says that, like, and I imagine that it's so crazy that you mentioned this illustration, because I literally envision this smile that I always see on the background of my computer when that line comes up. I'm like, oh man.
No, that was kind of like why I thought, like, aside from it just being a cool piece of art, like that specific smile was like why it's like, oh no, this is really good, and why it might have stuck more, just because the way that smile is recontextualized when you actually read the book. And just like the way like Rudy's like, he thought he'd failed, but instead he achieved something else, because he took yeah, this person who's lived so long and gone through so many lives with so many, like, again, think of it, Orsted could so very easily just be like someone who just doesn't care about, like, in a way he kind of is, right? Like when with Vio, right? Like Rudy sees like this king who mingles alongside the regular people, and it's like, man, that's a pretty cool guy. It sucks that history forgot him. Where Orsted's like, oh, he's unremarkable. It doesn't matter, right? Like he sees things from this different scale, but here he is, like coming, meeting this person who isn't in his like previous like world, and going. And now he's like, yeah, no, I want to fight alongside you. You're my friend. And it's like, let's go. Like Rudy, that's Rudy's power, is he can move the hearts of these fucking stubborn ass dragon folk. It's really cool. Also, I'd like to take back something I said before. I was like, oh, maybe if Rudy fought Orsted again, maybe he could win if he went at him with all the tricks again. And it's like, no, Orsted's OP. He's too fucking pro.
No.
Like fucking Alec, North God Kalman III, with the King Dragon Sword, and with the fighting god armor as an immortal demon blooded person, and Orsted like beats him in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we kind of got a hint at this though. In volume 15, we got a couple of hints. So Golfalion says something to Eris. He says, "Hey, there is a weird quirk to Orsted that I picked up on. If you show him something he hasn't seen before, he'll kind of just like analyze it in favor of fighting all out." And so that was his first time seeing something like the magic armor. He said so himself. But then there's also another key scene where Orsted says, I forget what he says, but he goes, "I see I have no choice." And then he pulls out the fucking sword. He hadn't pulled out the sword before
the dragon blade.
And immediately Rudius is powerless. Yeah, the dragon blade. I forget what the Dragon God Blade, I think is what
Dragon God Blade. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, I looked up because Rudy says he recognizes it. It was not named back in Volume 15, but it's probably the same sword. So
it is the same sword. Yeah. It literally looks identical. It just looks like a fucking
katana
samurai sword.
Yeah.
Katana. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so he pulls it out immediately, so Alec is about to get his ass whooping. He's about to get scolded.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about how it's like, he's fought the Fighting God Armor and Alec and the King Dragon Sword. He's fought them all before, so it's like, that makes sense. Where like with Rudy, he had to be cautious because he didn't know what Rudy could do. But with Alec, he's like, yeah, all right, round fucking 35, let's go. That makes sense.
But what was I gonna say? Whatever. Not important enough to remember, I guess.
But yeah, it's and of course Rudy apologizes and says that he's like, that the plan is to build up the army anyway, so Orsted won't need to use as much resources that he's lost for this fight. But there's stuff before that, obviously. But
well, what's cool about this on Alex's front is it's very clearly emphasized here. Alec felt just an insane amount of fear.
Yes.
Almost as if this might have been the first time someone's instilled this kind of fear into this. Goes back to what I was saying earlier.
Oh, yeah,
Rudius is a bundle of fear, and that courage, right? This is the first step. Learning fear, right, is the first step toward true courage, i.e. true heroism, right? So yeah, that's good. Step one is accomplished here, right?
And of course that results I didn't think of it like that, because that directly results in him becoming like part of the reason why he becomes a follower of Orsted, right? Like the left hand of the Dragon God, as is said.
The left hand of the Dragon God, hey.
Which is ironic because I don't think he has a left hand, or maybe he doesn't have a right. I don't remember.
I think it was his right one. I think it was his right one. That's
so he only has a left hand. Wait, hold on. Which one did Rudy lose?
I think it was his right one, wasn't it?
Okay, missed opportunity for Refugin there. I think either having it so that like Rudy lost his left hand and Alec lost his right hand, or vice versa. Either way, like as long but I think that if they both lost their right hand and then they both became different hands of Orsted, it's like, oh well, I guess Orsted has two left hands. That's weird. His thumb on one hand is backwards. So I don't know. I'm just being dumb. Don't worry about it. But anyway,
what else in that chapter? I guess that concludes it. Alec swears fealty to our boy Goatsted, and the battle actually closes.
Yeah,
it's done. And
we get a bunch of wrap up. We find out, Aisha saved the fucking day. She appealed to Perugius,
Heck yeah.
and they were able to get shit together. And the Superds were able to get their home and make an arrangement with the kingdom, which of course they found out that Geese and they were manipulating things, and yeah, like what are they gonna do? Not like, you got a fucking sword god and a north god. I guess we'll have to resist you. Oh no, they're fucked. Yeah.
And then there's some rebuilding. There's some building for the super. It's epic.
Relocating the village, to be closer to the entrance to the forest.
And there's a funny conversation with Rudius and Alec, where he's just like, "Hey, if you want it back anytime, just let me know. Like I'll give it on a silver platter." He's like, "Oh no, you've earned it." He's like, "Oh no, seriously, you could like headbutt me and I'd like instant KO. You don't understand. You don't need your hand to kill me." So yeah.
Please don't stab me in the back.
I'm gonna. He's like, I'm gonna come for my rematch one of these days. He's like, yeah, just no pointy objects, please, when we do. I don't want to die. He's like, all right.
Yep.
It's funny. It's good stuff. That's our MC right there. That's our fucking MC. I love him. And what does Orsted say? Oh, that's when Orsted's like, hey, we gotta go see Body Gotti. Did he say anything before that?
I mostly remember, I think it was with Sondor, he's got, like, Rudy's talking about how, like, just Sondor verbalizing how, the fact that Rudy gets his power, he achieved this because he gained from the strength of others is his strength, right, basically, where, so, friendship god Rudius.
Hell yeah, that's a good one, actually. That should be on the fucking 7 Great Powers monument. Hell yeah.
Oh, that'd be so funny where it's like all these cool names and then friendship god. Yay. The power of friendship. Fuck yeah.
And then his successor, Lara, becomes the new friendship god. And she's number 1, baby.
The one who can link minds with others becomes the best friendship god.
Exactly. Number 1, Lara Greyrat. The friendship.
Which, by the way, just a little tangent about her, because I'm just so curious about how her story's going to go, because I was so just to give a weird anecdote, so in Critical Role, one of the players was talking about how, like, just the subject had turned about how, like, when you make a role player or even a fictional character, like, they got to be a little bit fucked up, especially if they're going to go out and be an adventurer. And he was talking Travis Willingham, or anyone he voices Roy Mustang in the FMA dub. And he and also Ace in the One Piece dub, which is funny that they're both the fire characters. Anywho,
that is cool. I didn't know.
But he basically was talking about, he tried to make a character where they basically, like, they had a family and they didn't have anything bad happen to them, but they wanted to be an adventurer or whatever. And after like a few days of trying to like workshop, he's like, I hate this guy. So I was just thinking about like Laura, like, well, because we get a little taste of it with I think it was Christy, or Christina. Where she was being bullied for having all these privileges because she grew up in this like nice household with like 4 amazing parents and all these other like siblings and stuff, right? And I was just thinking about like how Laura, that's like where she's coming from as well, right? Like she's literally being doted on by this incredibly powerful spirit. She has the blessings of her race as a McGurd. That her mother doesn't have, despite only being half, right? Like, she's been prophesized as a great hero, so I'm just kind of like afraid for the rest of her family members in regards to like what is like going to be her hang up and like her conflict as the great hero, right? Because she comes from this place of privilege and power, and I don't know. I'm just I was just wondering about this, thinking about that, like that kind of like that aspect of heroes and main characters, and how tragedy is so universal to telling a story like this, I guess. So
especially given that the hints we've got, her disposition seems to be more like Alex than Rudius's, where she's more haughty based upon these things.
Just from fucking infancy is the thing, like Alex, a 100-year-old infant, but she's just an infant. So very funny, but just something I've been thinking about, because again, like, obviously we have nothing yet apparently, but I'm very fucking curious. So anywho, So let's see what else I have. Oh yeah, also just the name changes because Clyde instead of Klein I think it was or Clive. Clive was the original name for Cliff and Ellen Elise's son, but they called him Clyde in this reading for translation religion.
No, but I noticed that too, and I was like, it's been Clive. Like I've always known him as Clive. I don't know if that's
and also and I remember them spelling Gaius as GAUI or NS or no or NIS or something like that. But this one they spelled it GAINISS, and I was like, that's weird. It took me a second. So just weird name changes at the last minute. I just thought it was weird, but whatever. It's
anyway.
Yeah. We get the bodyguard scene. Moving on to that.
Yes, and it's more perspective on just his long life and just how he views things so much differently than Rudius, and how in the time that he's got to wait here to be released, that is more than a lifetime that Rudius has, combined even with his old life and his new life, and it's just like and. Bodyguard hears how long it'll take. He's like, oh, that's kind of a long time, but it is what it is. I'll be released. And it's like, wow. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's why Bodyguard didn't even have to think too much about his decision, because to him, even if it led to defeat, that defeat is not, it's that defeat does not mean the end. That does not mean it's unlike himself. It's finite, right?
Yeah. Well, what I hadn't thought about before was how, because again, I've been pulling regret as a notable theme, major theme, and I was just thinking about how, like Bodyguard, he has a lot of reason to feel a lot of regret, right? Like he destroyed an entire continent. He basically the man god led him to that kind of great regret. But like, yeah, as an immortal demon. He just feel like he processes it and deals with it very differently, where in a way they kind of like they almost don't really regret, right? Like, and so like that's why he's usually like he lumps in with the man god again, because it's like, yeah, even if he knows that it's going to turn out bad for him, it's like, his lifespan is so long, it's not really worth getting hung up on. So I was just thinking about how like it's something like that, yeah, that Rudy was kind of like maybe trying to avoid by going in with the man god in the first place. And has become like, especially with Paul, it's been such a like an important, and it's even just his previous life, it's been just such a motivating factor in his life of both like trying to overcome his prior regret and live on with even less regret. But where the demons, in a way, because they almost don't feel regret in a sense, that makes them sort of like weaker than humanity in a way, because like as we sort of see with Bodyguard versus Rudy here, I think. So I don't know, just I hadn't thought about it like that, so that's neat.
I mean, it's as Atofe even said back then, like that's human strength, is like that that transient space of time they have to exist is their strength, because they make the most of it, and which means progression, right? They progress very quickly, and they innovate.
Yes.
That is Rudius. I mean, actually, I can't use that anymore, because if that is true, that the magic armor was actually something that they didn't create, then I can't even say. Refugin, I got
motherfucker.
My eyes on you. What are you doing? We need an elucidation here. I need to know. I need to know what's right. I need to know what's right and what's wrong at this point.
I mean, again, even if they didn't create it, like the important fact was that Roxy was important for getting there with her intellect. But still, it's definitely still weird. But and also,
I was gonna say, well, like even he's fighting with armor that he was alone to him, without the person's express permission, and it was the man god that led him there. But this time it was the man god led Rudius to find this magic armor, but they've upgraded it. They've created something often with their own innovation and their own collaboration. That's something that Bodyguard has never even thought about.
Yeah,
doing.
That's true.
But again, that might be that interpretation might fall on its face.
It doesn't specifically relate to that aspect of the fight, I guess. Yeah, because with the version 0, yeah.
Anywho, whatever. Regardless, it's a really cool scene. And that final line is very poignant and very interesting.
What the
I
may
hope you
be
find
your
a cure
curse
to
is
your
lifted?
curse.
Yes.
Yes, Dragon God. Like, ooh, wow, that is you would not expect that from that final line there. It's like, oh wow, what a heartwarming note in the finale, and I can kind of understand because what is one of Bodigadi's creeds of his new self, the true King of Wisdom, is that to make merry, to frolic, to make merry, and the only way you can do that is with others, right? That's not something you can do, as a singularity. Orsted was never able, because of his curse, he's never able to do that. But now, through Rudius's kin, as we even see in one of these, in the final dream chapter, Orsted has that. He doesn't necessarily need his curse lifted, actually. The curse, in essence, is kind of lifted, even if not explicitly, it's lifted through Rudius and his lineage, in a way.
Yeah.
So that's already actively happening, unbeknownst to Bodigadi. I just thought it was a really cool line, and that kind of made me think about the curse in general.
Yeah. Then also, of course, we got, or maybe I mentioned it earlier and completely forgot for some reason because it's getting kind of late. But just Bodigadi casually mentioning that.
Yeah, it is literally 1:19 a.m. here where I'm at.
Him mentioning that he's not going to fight for either like Orsted or the Man God. Like he's done with that. And just like, so, even though of course Orsted still resolved to keep him trapped until the Man God's dealt with, but Body's like, no, I'm not going to fight for you, because Alec was like, yeah, sure, I'll be your left hand, but Body's like, nope, nuh-uh. Not having that. But yeah, so just good. And then we get the promised foursome that I've been waiting for.
I remember, dude. This episodes you're like, maybe we'll get the foursome, and I was just like,
he gets it. He understands.
I just love that chronologically, like this is kind of the end. Given that this is still this is like the end, this is like right after the final battle. This is like the end, and it ends. It's so funny, but it's so, it feels so right. How Rudius goes, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna recoup. I'm gonna recover. I'm gonna have a nice. Fuck it. I'm just trying to get laid. It's like, no, fuck that shit. That's platitudes.
We go to the bedroom.
I'm just trying to get laid.
The end. Now. Credits roll.
I'm trying to be Rudius the Free right now. Yeah. I'm just trying to be Rudius the Free right now. It's so funny. It's so good. Yeah.
Well, and I even like just the way they react, where it's just like Eris is just like, I just knew, like that, like I think they even mentioned that he doesn't even normally have his like horny look. Basically, they just like intuit what he means because they understand him.
Yeah.
And of course also just like Eris being really embarrassed because she's hasn't had sex with other women being there as well, and also just like even in the artwork, just Sylphie just being so into it because of course she's the horny one. Of course she is. It's just very cute.
Yeah. She's like, oh man, oh my god, Rudy, it's been so long. Oh my god, I can't.
Yeah,
it's like that's like what's going through her mind right now. Whereas like Roxy's just like, sure, let's do it, and then Eris is like, oh my god, oh my fucking god, oh shit. Yeah, that's good stuff. You see all their personalities truly come out during sex, as we can see. What a funny, great way to end. But speaking of end.
Not quite. So yeah, we get the final dream that is as we find out a little bit later, it's maybe a bit more see, this is what I was gonna say when before we get into it. I just want to like the framing of it, because obviously given that like we're expecting a Lara sequel, it's like, did he just spoil the ending of the Lara sequel? But as we see in The World After Death, where you have the Man God saying fuck you, basically, like I think this vision that we see in the final dream, that's like the Man God sending Rudy a picture of like, this is what the future that you created for me if I don't do anything, if I don't try to stop it, basically. And which I just think is just because it's so important, because I was definitely thinking like, that's weird, because like obviously, if he just tells us how it's going to end, then it's like, well, we know how it's going to end. So there's a level of like, oh no, Lara's she'll be fine. She's not going to die, right? Because we see her in this ending thing, even if he's vague with a lot of the characters we see, right? And like even like little tidbits, like obviously he's seen Rudy's death, so he knows that his great granddaughter, I think, gets the or granddaughter, one of his descendants gets the Orsted bracelet, and so he like has that showing up in this dream. And so just before we get into the dream itself, but like so framing it as like this is the future that Rudy created, but probably not the future that will actually happen, because the man god is like he had because I was even thinking about again like comparing the man god to Rudy's prior self. It's like the Rudy would try to do something, and then after he failed he'd give up. And so until that story number 3, I was thinking like, the man god tried to defeat Rudy and he lost, so he's just given up and he's just letting Rudy live the rest of his life unmolested, right? Like they're without being attacked by any threats, right? But it's really that like the man god's going to try again, but not against Rudy. He's specifically waiting until Rudy's died. He's going to fight his lineage and Orsted. So which is very good. That's because obviously Laura can't go through the story without opposition. But okay, now we can talk about the chapter proper. I just wanted to talk about it's just smart way to do it, because that way you can can have your cake and eat it too. You can see like this is kind of like we get this cool moment with Rudy seeing the potential future, but then also it doesn't ruin Laura's story, so we're all set.
And just like everyone paying respect to him.
Yes.
It's just so, and then like Orsted included. Wow, but I think what's so cool about the final dream is it goes from end to beginning chronologically. You start at the very end, death, and then you backtrack to just before death, and then you backtrack one more time to age 34. I think that's so fucking cool. I love the sequence, the sequencing Rifujin does here. I think it's genius. It's a little bit it kind of throws you for a loop. It's very unexpected. Like, whoa, okay, he's dead. Oh no, now he's alive. Oh, but he's on his deathbed, so he's about to die. Oh wait, now he's awake as a 34-year-old, and he's getting pranked by his 2 meager daughters. It's like it's genius. I love it. I love it so much. And God, that entire scene of him being surrounded by his family and him being a little bit delirious.
God,
there's not anything else to say other than peak fiction. It's like that even the little bit where and then how he notices that girl looks like the swordsman girl that looks like Eris in the in the vision he just had, and how it's like, so she's gonna be battling the man god, and she like falls in the little detail of him, like it doesn't outright say it, but obviously he braced her fall with gravity magic. Like, ooh, so it's so cool. And everyone coming up there, he's been sleeping for a while. The little note on Eris dies a few years before him, and how he cried for several days.
Well, also back to the potential future. Rudy notes 2 men who look Asian, and I was like,
that's true. Yeah, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, because obviously I was like, okay, Shinohara, and then he's like, there's some other. Is this guy Japanese? He's like in his 20s. Oh, he did a bow. Maybe he is Japanese. And I'm like, hold the fucking phone. Like if you said 2 Japanese people, then it's like, okay, Nanahoshi and Shinohara. I don't know. Nanahoshi obviously wouldn't be fighting. But then who the fuck is this other guy? What? And because obviously
Nanahoshi with 2 people. When
yes, but I thought one of them was like a boyfriend and one of Shinohara, and one of them was just like a friend. So in my mind it was a girl. I thought it was a girl, not a guy. But I don't remember. I wasn't paying enough attention to remember the name, because we heard the names a while ago. And we would have been tell like, this is probably a feminine name, and this one's masculine name. But it's vaguely what I remember. But I don't have the names on hand unless I search. Did I write them down? Maybe let me check. Give me a second. Shinohara Akito and Kuroki Satoshi? Oh, that's a male's name. Okay. So yeah, it was a guy. So I guess that would be Shinohara Akito and Kuroki Satoshi. Maybe. Because Satoshi is a man's name. So, as is Akito. Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's they then that would mean that they are both people that if that's okay, that would make sense. Okay, I thought it was a girl for some reason. But also now I want to go back and check episode 1 because it's like I see what did they show? What did they show us? Like in episode 1, the sneaky little fuckers. So yeah, and then anything else I want to talk about these chapters?
Just Orsted cracking a joke and everyone lightheartedly laughing at it. Like,
oh my god, yeah.
I would kill you, of course.
Yes.
It's like, you jokester, Orsted. And then it's just like, oh man, like the man god was defeated. So a good dream then. Yeah. And it's like you've lived a good life. May you rest in peace. And he's like, I don't plan. I just want to stay here a little longer, just a little longer. It's like, oh man, what a this is good shit. This is so fucking good. And then like just when you think, okay, that's got to be it. Boom, 34 years old. Oh, he's like, oh, I took off the bracelet. Oh, was I just having? Okay, damn. Like, and then that segueing into the fucking final graveyard scene with Paul and Geet, like, man, oh my god, there's too many finales in this finale. It's crazy. And they're all goated. Like, can you think of another fucking anything? I can't think of another anything I've ever read where there's like fucking 10 finales and all of them are just as good as each other. Like, bro, that's fucking crazy. It's great. Yeah. Volume 26 is just it's the best. It's the best. It's peak. It's the best volume in Mushoku Tensei. I can't think of any other thing that has like multiple endings, and they're all insane. Not only that, we get a fucking prologue, epilogue. Like, it's stacked. This volume is fucking stacked. It's crazy. But anyway,
some other details. Rudy invents a mana restoring potion that also doesn't work on Orsted. I guess so. Unfortunate. Just a little Ariel has 5 kids from different fathers without having a marrying, so that she retains the throne. Well, I like how they're like, oh, Luke's like, we don't even know who 4 of the fathers are, and it's like, oh, because Luke's one of the fathers. Okay, yeah.
And then the decision to have all the stuff that he's doing with the Ashura Kingdom and the progression of magic technology, he's putting in he's crediting it to Silent Seven Star.
Yes.
And that's where that's where a lot of confusion about his historical records come in. It's really cool. But so that's a cool note. That's him keeping his promise to Nanahoshi on that one to make it easy for the 2 Japanese dudes when they come about.
Yeah. Then we get the final chapter, story 3, which I'm obviously I don't mind. It's probably something I could have inferred anyway, but I do remember you talking about almost spoiling me back before we even started reading Mushoku Tensei, because you were alluding to Rudy appearing to the man god as Rudy, basically, because we were talking about.
Damn! Did I don't remember that.
No, we were talking about him being seeing himself as his prior life when he sees the man god in regards to like his identity and how he sees himself. And just talk about like ethics and shit with the reincarnation stuff. And you started to say something and you stopped yourself, and I just kind of figured out what it was because I don't know. I'm kind of smart, I guess.
Oh damn!
No, it's fine. No, it was still really good. Like well, God, especially what I like about it is just like one, just the absolute contentment that Rudy has, like to the point that because we see him on his deathbed, surrounded by a loving family. Right, having achieved this life of happiness and having overcome all this like more difficulty than he had to deal with in his previous life. You could potentially argue, because he didn't have the tools to deal with it in that life, but he did in this one. But then he still looks at the man god. He's like, give it your all, okay? Do your best, right? And I just thought because again, tying back to the the respect he had for Bodyguard and Geese is like exactly. They were exceptional antagonists. So it's like for the man god. It's like, he's going to be like, yeah, do your best because, like him opposing Rudy, what allowed him to find that contentment, right? Because he defeated this great foe and could be happy living with his family for the 50 years of his life he had after that, the half a century of just enjoying his life and family. And though I also think there's a level of like confidence where it's like, he left behind a legacy, and that legacy is going to be standing with or set against the man god. So it's like, he might also trust that his family can oppose whatever he throws at him. So, he doesn't feel any fear when saying, hey, give it your best shot. That's kind of what he's saying. Like, give it your best, do it. But because he thinks that his family will win out, and that's what, because like, and just also just the way it just completely shits on the man god, because like the man god just loves to like, I didn't act for the last 50 years, but I've been building up in the background because I'm gonna destroy everything, and because he that's what he likes to do, right? He likes to take away everything you care about and gloat at you, right? But Rudy doesn't give it that. He's just like, okay, good luck, buddy, bye. Like he refuses to give the man god that sort of satisfaction. It's just it's so fucking good. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just the contentment that like even stretches so far as to when he thinks of, well, I mean, if I get reincarnated and it's a much worse situation, I think I could handle that. I think I'd be okay at this point. It's like, wow, like that's like starting all over again with not many tools. If you have these memories you have now, yeah, you really could. It's not just contentment, it's the truth. That's the kind of man Rudy Esquerra is now, man. It's great. And just that even with death, like he didn't turn back, he didn't look back to see the man god and think about his family. They'll be fine. He did everything he could, and so he's just walking until he dissipates. To see you around is like such a, oh man, it's so casual, but it's so poignant being at the end. To see you around as his final line in the story of Mushoku Tensei. I don't know if it hits for you as much as it hits for me. To see you around. His final line. I love it.
I wouldn't say it hit for me personally. I mean, not emotionally. Like, yeah, as like someone who's been hit emotionally by stuff in like like I mentioned with the Zenith like earlier, like in this reading. But it was like I thought it was a good ending, but it definitely didn't like. I don't know how long between you starting Mushoku Tensei and you finishing Mushoku Tensei. I guess like that said, I mean it's definitely shorter than the time between for me, because I think we both started watching it and that you went into the web novel. So never mind. That's not relevant. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm saying this because I'm not the only one that was affected dramatically like this from reading this final stuff. I remember following the guy, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast with you. The guy on Twitter that of Yaso, his journey, when he got to this, he also quoted this and saying like, "Wow, what an insanely great finale. I love, like, this is like number 2 for me, right behind One Piece." It's like, man, you're just like me when I read this final shit. Like, Mushoku Tensei is the best. This is such a perfect ending. Like, I remember also seeing a tweet by him not too long later, where it was like, where it was like, me in World War III, like on my, like dying, blood dripping out of me. But then I think about the beautiful life of Rudy Esquerra. It's like a guy just like finding contentment in death. And it's like, that's me. Like, that is how much this story is. Rudy's story, by extension, has affected me. And that's why this hits me, because this is the end of that story. And to the point where that "see you around" says so much for me. It's not just, he's not saying he'll see you around, but his lineage will surely see you around, because he built that. He built that with his new life, right? Yeah. And it's just, it means something to me, man. It means something to me. I don't even got the words to explain, to adequately elucidate to you how much it speaks to me. I know it's not it's you're probably not even close to my level on that much, but
well, no, because I was gonna say, like, as far as this chapter, like what left more impression on me was that give it your all and that contentment, more so than the see you later, I guess. Like, I didn't really dwell on that one too much, I guess, because I guess just to now that we are basically at this point done with the story, yeah, like, I love Mushoku Tensei a lot, but as you can probably tell, I don't love it quite that deeply, I guess. Like, it's not, like, one of my favorite stories of all time, I would say. It's still one of my favorite book series of all time, for sure, and I definitely, like, loved it a lot, and I'm very glad to have talked to it. Like, thank you very much for picking it, because I'm, very content having read it, and I'm very much looking forward to more. It's really interesting, and it was a really good read. And I will be revisiting it probably in, I don't know, maybe I'll like watch it along with the anime and then rewatch the anime or something, but eventually reread it maybe. And of course and especially like, after, like, if we do get the Lara sequel, I was just thinking earlier about how getting more context on these characters, like you know, like you were mentioning, like with Orsted, like, well, maybe he does have more stuff going on. Or with Laplace, like, what if we learn something about Laplace that makes like certain aspects of this story just like more interesting, right? Like, because that's the thing about like Boruto kind of does that as well, where even though it's like a sequel with a next generation type story, but like there's ways you can like read into the previous story as well and draw. That's like the nice thing about these long form stories is drawing those contrasts. And there was definitely stuff in it that hit me personally, like I especially like with Zenith, I think. But at the same time, like there's other works where that have hit me in that subject matter more strongly. So it's like, but it's just, I don't know, it's a very, very good story, and I'm glad to have read it, and I enjoyed it a lot. Right. And yeah,
just for pure selfish intrigue, because I think you've mentioned this before, kind of stretching the limit of what we could necessarily consider an isekai. I think you've mentioned before that like SAO would be your favorite.
I kind of wouldn't call SAO an isekai. I mean, it's an important progenitor, but it's not really
It's not really an isekai. No. But basically what I'm trying to say is SAO is like one of your favorite stories of all time, right? So I'd imagine you would put SAO above MT, right?
I think in regards to like if we're just talking just pure character stuff, I'd probably like just characters. I'd probably put Mushoku Tensei above, but SAO hits me more. Well, I like when I was talking about like the mom having a dead mom thing and stories hitting me personally with that. I was thinking about SAO because I think I've talked about you about how specifically the Mother's Rosario arc that was adapted in season 2 is the most I've been hit in that front because it's just it's scary. But then also, another thing I get out of SAO that I continually find fascinating about, well, because one thing I knew it came out, but obviously it came out before it was adapted into animation, but I did not know that it was originally published from 2002 to 2004. Like it's like basically like so up to War of Underworld, like that was published in 2004, and I was like, what the fuck? And I just find it really interesting in a sci-fi lens as well, I guess, like thinking about it as a reflection of responsive, especially like the internet as a early internet work. And I intend to dig into like its influences and comparing like some of its ideas to other like sci-fi works. Like I want to dig into that front as well, so I find that really fascinating. But like as an isekai work, like I'd say like right now, Mushoku Tensei is probably my favorite, but I am going to be reading ReZero this year, so we'll see if because I like the anime of that a lot, but I'll see how the novels work for me. So yeah, but I don't know. Mushoku Tensei is still really good, and obviously, maybe.
No, I literally only asked that because it just interests me, given that like I tried SAO again recently, and I just could not. It's just not. I do not hold it. There's only one scene, and I talked to you about this before, that I really, really enjoyed out of all my viewings of SAO. Everything else I was like, this is like, I can't really.
Yeah.
But we all find value in different things, obviously.
Of course.
And so it's just, that's why I was actually expecting and a little bit hoping you say, I like SAO more definitively because that interests me. That's interesting. That we have such a similar
I do think I do enjoy it more definitively, but it's just more like
our interests can be still so varied. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, yeah, I get you. I think I think the difference is that like to apply arbitrary number ratings to things, like I wasn't quite sure about giving Mushoku Tensei a 10, so I gave it a 9 because I was like, I like it, but not quite. Maybe I'm more reflection. Maybe I'll appreciate more aspects about it, and because like the peak moments probably, but I because SAO is probably less consistent overall because so in regards to like me rating it as I watched it, I gave the first season like an 8. I think I gave season 2 Ordinal Scale, Alicization, and War of Underworld Part 1 and 9, and then it was fine. It was really with Part 2 that it all kind of like clicked together, and I'm like, no, this was like one of the best experiences I've ever had with an anime, and that's when I gave it a 10. So I haven't even like fully, and even rewatching it, I didn't give the earlier like seasons 1 or 2, because it's a bit more uneven. Like with Mushoku Tensei, it's like obviously it's got like the really good stuff, but then there are just like this novel was fine, but that's like normal for any story, I think. But Isao being a bit more so. Anyway, Mushoku Tensei is just it's very good, and we're not done talking about it.
Yeah. Oh my god. Still got a little bit more.
Yes.
The appendix.
I loved it. I thought it was really good.
It was it's just like, and some it's just taking multiple accounts, and then we even get the bibliography page at the end, and we see, oh man, it's so cool to see, because a lot of it is Noren's work, because she's a novelist.
Yeah.
She becomes a novelist. She's like the Rifujin of the Mushoku Tensei world.
But just generally speaking, I just like getting this alternate perspective on Rudy's like the story. Like we obviously have like Rudy's perspective, but here's like how history remembers him, with all the like misunderstandings and like let's just a few that I loved pointing at, like so at his Rudy crying at his 10th birthday party because his parents didn't show up, which is like, well,
which was actually a scheme he had internally.
No, it was like he was making a joke, it just fell flat. So it just didn't work. Befriending Cliff on his adventures.
Sophie's account.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say, because they said that he befriended Cliff on his adventures with Ruijerd and Eris, but it's like he didn't actually meet Cliff. Eris met Cliff, and he didn't meet Cliff until he got to the school. He teleported to the labyrinth with Paul's aid, and it's like, how the fuck did Paul help him? Just all those little details of them getting things wrong was fun.
That's really, really cool. And then like it's like, we don't know Rudius's looks. Like he wasn't particularly handsome, and I immediately thought that might be just because of like the way he smiled was like unattractive, even though he's actually genuinely like a very attractive guy. That's probably where that comes from. But we know, given like his, he had multiple women, he probably wasn't ugly. Although we do have one account from Sylphia Grey Rat where she says, whenever he looked at me, I would get weak in the knees. So I was like, that's Sophie, all right.
Well, I also love there's like a debate about him being perverted, because it's like, well, he never cheated on his wives, so he can't have been that perverted enough to grope them in public. That like, there's no way. And it's like, well, no, it was just he could be perverted and faithful. Like they aren't mutually exclusive. Probably the funniest one that made me lose my mind. Because, so obviously we just came off this emotional, old Rudy dying in his bed. He had Roxy's panties on his person in this emotional moment. They mentioned how, Roxy took a cloth. This cloth might have held a secret power. Are they 70-year-old musty panties? Was that what she took? They're 70 years old. They can't be that pair, right? They're 70 years old.
They are. That's the ones from way back when. The ones that gave Rudius strength since he was a child.
Also, he worships an unknown dark god named Roxy.
It's so good.
It's so funny.
Good. Oh, and then how later on in his life, what was his epithet? Because he went by so many different taglines.
Oh, Seven Named Rudius or something like that.
Seven Named Rudius, just like how he's the seventh.
Well, one of the ones I thought was interesting is because they called him Magician King, which I remember that. The only time he was called that I remember was actually in the Ariel Vita Abyssal King dream. Because he was Magician King because he was a very powerful magician who married Ariel.
I was reading that and I was like, that sounds really familiar. That's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just thought it was interesting that he got. I presume he got it in this timeline because, or this reality because he's just the best fucking, like, as they mentioned, he's basically like this time period's best magician, and he overturned the era of swordsmanship through increased development of silent casting and other such magic armor and all these other things.
Yeah, given that, like, why not just call him Magician God, and then he can have a good just call him Magician God at that point.
Yeah,
right? It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. and then he'll be a god just like the other seven great powers, Magician God Rudius. Yeah, that's what it is, I guess.
And yeah, the bibliography was just, well, I just thought, like, okay, let's, like, what was the first one? So yeah, obviously Norn making a picture book for Rudy. Ah, like
Good
for
shit.
Rudy's,
Good
but also just like Aisha Grey Rat, the agonies of a genius. You little fucking shit. I love you. Or that, well, that was, that was Norn who read it. Duh. Okay, I just thought it was funny, just like the fact that it was.
It was Norn who wrote that.
Yeah, that's right. Okay,
it
I
was
misread that because I
biography.
thought it was Aisha making a book about herself. I was like, you motherfucker. But no, it was Norn writing, okay, about her sister. And then doing a follow-up about herself. Yeah, never mind. Okay, I misread that.
Yeah. Cool chapter. But somehow still not being as cool as the fucking.
Oh, I thought you were gonna mention the
Prologue
afterword
Zero.
where you get, which is just Rudy, just his a bit of it, like just opening up, I guess, like
Oh.
hypothetically writing to someone who might translate, like, the way the secret code used between Rudius and Nanahoshi, and it's like, good luck fucking cracking that Japanese without a Rosetta Stone of some sorts, like
Motherfuckers,
yeah. But obviously,
But,
just him just being honest and like helping a hypothetical future person help Nanahoshi. Or
What's
help
funny
get
to me,
the
the
future.
only thing I gotta say about this is it's such a fucking dick move from Rudius to, like, given that the main priority of writing this should be, like, one of the two guys that opens it from Japan still that are going to be traversing here. Like, it's gotta hold important information so that they can, like, find their footing in this new world, right? But most of it is just, like, extracurriculars about, like, this and that and this and that, and he's just talking about, and he's going off tangent, and he's like, oh, by the way, if you want to learn how to get back to your world, follow in the footsteps of Silent Seven Star. He doesn't even give you, like, a comprehensive. He's just like, yeah, do this. Bye.
Yep.
It's
I
like,
mean,
this motherfucker went
I'm
on
just
and on and
imagining
on about irrelevancies, only to give a little fucking hint at the. I mean, it's a big hint, mind you. It's not a little hint. It's a big hint, but a hint nonetheless. It's not very, not very detailed at all.
I mean, it's going to be very funny when we're reading the Lar novel and Shinohara finds this Rudius journal, and it's like, and it's like, okay, well, that he gets the big hint, and for him, it's like, oh shit, and it's like, well, we're like, well, Rudy, you could have said a little bit more, you little fuck.
Motherfucker. God damn it. Yeah.
But yeah, then,
she'll be there.
anyway, now we get to Prologue 0. Sheesh.
Fucking crazy. We finally get the explanation for why this story happened.
Yep. Just a one girl who wished really, really hard and changed the fucking world a lot.
Changed the fate of
like
the
the
world.
fact that Rudy was so instrumental because it was like a fucking accident. Like his soul just happened to be nearby because she wanted to save Shinohara when he was summoned to this world. And so Rudy just happened to die nearby, so there was just a wandering soul that just slipped in and changed the timeline and allowed for this greater effect to happen. And oops, the whole story happens. And even before then, just like the writing a story myself, I was just getting vibes from aspects of that story through like, here's a girl who suffers a lot and has a desire. And I don't know, just elements like more not like in that way, like that's I'm not saying that because it's similar to something I do. It's more like that's split across multiple, like, two characters, I guess. But I still got I just thought of, like, I don't know, reading this. It definitely made me want to go back to my story, and I think I have since finishing. I mean, I've been wanting to anyway, and I was going to around, but it's just like, I don't know, that kind of thing of just like reading things and being like, I want to write my things, and it's like, yeah. But anyway,
no, that's good. Inspiration. Yeah. Fuck yeah. Power of inspiration, baby. Heck yeah.
But yeah, no, just like the utter helplessness of the situation, and then the light through Shinohara, Akito helping, Lyria, that was her name. Before, God knows what's gonna happen with her, but because again, the future is unknown, so not sure if I have anything else to say, but it's interesting.
It makes me want more, so much more, just like, and then like how it ends, like, is this the future she envisions for herself now that this is like the last one that she's like powerless? Well, wait and see. Guess we'll find out. It's like, oh know, and then now like we got another character in the mix that we didn't know about that's going to be in the sequel series. It's like, oh my, dude, things are.
So let me see who. Okay, so Orsted, Perugius, Lara, Ferris, we saw from who got the bracelet. Yeah. Shinohara, Satoshi. I remember Shinohara's surname, but Satoshi's given name. Then
Lapis, of course.
Of course,
big.
The man god, obviously. Who got? I mean, presumably Kalman, or Alec rather. Maybe Sandor as well.
Yeah, Alec,
because they'd be alive at least, and Kalman Alec would be on Orsted's side. So, I mean, presumably Roxy of Ruijerd could be alive, but obviously his daughter is probably more relevant, I suppose.
Oh yeah, Sylphie too, for that matter.
Sylphie
probably still be alive.
Could be, because she's only like a quarter elf, I think it was. So
that's true.
She is longer lived, but she could be alive 80 years. She'd probably be alive, but like old, like because she was like 40 when Rudius passed away after 50 years. So yeah, after another 30, she'll be alive. She'll just be older and maybe not like granny yet, but older. Obviously, duh. That's how time works. What am I saying?
Indeed.
But anyway, So yeah, it's just exciting to think about, and how things could change, because obviously there'll be a bunch of new assholes, and but before then we got to read the next 2 volumes and learn more about Rudy's fucking asshole piece of shit family, who I probably will love. What's Aris's deal, and what about Sieg? Did he turn out to be a weirdo, or is he a nerd, or is he cool? I don't know. We gotta know.
I just now thought of this. I think it is very, very interesting that she's a similar disposition to Rudius, but on a much larger scale. How Rudius had a terrible first life. Was partly out of his control, but partly in his control. But he lost complete control because of his his inward constitution. But he was granted a second chance. Whereas this girl has had every life blend in to be one catastrophically long, gruesome life of just death, of waiting for another painful death.
Until she gets one hope, and that's taken from her,
But this last final life is her one true life she gets to live, just as Rudius's life as Rudius Grey Rat was his second chance. This is now his time to live, right? Whereas she, I'm just thinking it's exactly like Rudius, but just on a much greater, not only the pain she endured beforehand, but now what she's probably going to have to do and what she's going to have to endure is probably going to be even greater than his.
And I will say I really like how that chapter, it's like, okay, I don't know who this character is, and then suddenly it's like I didn't say make her smile. What's wrong with you, Refugian? Because I feel like it's like, what's the once is tragedy, twice is comedy, right? Like that idea of that too extreme of a tragedy just becomes so over top that it gets kind of funny. But this didn't fall into that at all. In fact, it was, if anything, it was I found it to be effective. Like I wasn't just like, wow, this is so overblown and suffering. It's like, no, I want this girl saved. Help her. someone. I think that's why it made me think of my suffering characters that I made suffer, and I want to get to the point where they're not suffering and that they overcome that suffering. And it's like, but I got to get there first. I still got to write like fucking 5 million words. But anyway,
Yeah, same.
Anyway, one more chapter.
This one, it's cute, it's funny, almost not worth mentioning comparatively to what we've been talking about for the last 3.5 hours, but it's cute. That's all I gotta say. That's cute. Roxy is a little bit self-conscious after having the foursome rather, sorry. And Rudius gives a great analogy. It's actually it's perfect analogy. Would you compare a good cake versus a good no, I don't remember.
Well, I was gonna say how it's kind of like Roxy's usually so good at explaining things, and or because she becomes headmaster of the academy, right? Like she's a good teacher, but here's Rudy, using like rhetoric and being able to give something to her in a sense that helps her understand, and especially like also personally appealing because he's as sweet as an analogy, and she's like, well, you like donuts, caramel pudding, and cake, don't you? And she's like, yeah. So yeah. It's just it
who's
was
the donut, who's the caramel pudding, and who's the cake?
Well, Eris is the cake. Because she's caked up.
Just gonna say that. Yeah, that's literally where I was going. Yeah, the caramel pudding is probably. Oh wait,
I see. I don't like
pudding. I would give to Roxy.
Okay.
I'd give that to Roxy.
Okay.
The donut is Sylphie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Ask for my justification.
I get it, because Sylphie's good at healing magic. She's holy.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you for saving my. Thank you. Yeah, saved it. And then
anyway, and that's how we end the discussion. No, no, that's fine. Yeah. Go ahead.
Roxy has been melted down like the sugar and caramel through her rigorous going from fucking labyrinth to labyrinth to find her man until now she's this matured fucking. She's the oldest of all of them. She's like matured like caramel, like cooking down sugar at like a very slow pace until it's the perfect drizzly caramel. Exactly. This is perfect. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right. Makes sense.
That's Mushoku Tensei, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you all for listening. We have one more for you. And I guess, I mean, one thing I've been trying to do when picking stuff is that we pick stuff that's like finished, hypothetically, because I'm like thinking about our upcoming list, and it's like it's all stuff that's like it's over, like, but maybe it'll be a thing in the future where we have to like, how do we deal with something that's ongoing, right? Like maybe the Lara sequel does come out, and we'll really want to talk about it. How are we going to do that? I don't know. We don't know when it's going to come out, and if it's going to come out, well, the podcast, I don't know what the future of the podcast is, so that's just like a bridge we'll have to cross when we come to it. So,
Yep.
If we talk about Mushoku Tensei, it'll kind of depend on like what we have to say about it and what comes out, when it comes out. There's too many factors to possibly consider. So yeah, or even just what makes a better discussion. Like to give an example, we talked about the Bear seasons 1 and 2. I talked about it with Shaves. Good show. But season 3 came out and we watched it, but we decided to wait until season 4 comes out because it very much feels like it's setting up for season 4. So yeah, anyway, case by case basis. So anyway, all right, thank you all for listening. So yeah, next time we're gonna read Recollections and Redundant Reincarnation. And if you want to read,
finally, all of it'll be pretty much new stuff to me. So I cannot wait. Cannot wait to talk about it.
And we'll wait on the other one, the Dragon God one, because it's not officially translated yet. But it will be one day, I'm sure. So yeah, anyway. All right, catch you all later. Thank you very much for listening.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. Key Fiction.